Welcome back. It's Codie Sanchez, and this is the Big Deal podcast for those who don't just want to be rich, but be free and do what it actually takes to get there. Okay, today I have a treat for you. This is a long-form interview with a real man in, dare I say, a world of boys who's become a friend, Mike Chandler. So he's a UFC fighter. He won the Bellator championship 3 times, slated to fight Conor McGregor, and also oddly one of the nicest humans I've ever had the pleasure to become friends with. Now, Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. And Mike and I joked about that because it turns out that's true. And it's useful kind of to talk to those who have been repeatedly face punched and still keep their demons in their mind at bay. So you should listen to this if you want to be more mentally strong, you wonder how to take control of a life and a childhood that was hard, you wonder what it's like to be inside the mind of a champion, and you want to have it all, like an incredible career, a six-pack, beautiful wife and children, like he does. So I think we should get into it. What do you think?
I completely agree. And before we even jump into stuff, I feel like you should read something that you wrote the other day.
So here's my contrarian idea. I think sometimes you need a story to tell yourself when life is hard, when you're losing, and you don't even want to get out of bed. And so I wrote this to remind myself of that. It's the dark of the night. My alarm says 12:44 a.m., but my brain says sleep no more. The world outside is loud, pounding, insatiable, and it will not settle. A running to-do list races through my mind, marching like incessant ants in a line. Then I remember every army needs a general, so I throw off the covers and relegate sleep to a future self. We've got work to do. God gave us a body filled with capacity, a horde straining to break free. Better use it. The coffee pot whistles happily, thrilled at being used for its true capacity. Happy to have an early friend to start the day. My pen traces paper, taking ideas out of my head and onto the one place where they can't slip away from me so easily. It's quiet. No emails coming in, no pings, just me in the night. That feeling of purpose, of execution, of getting done flows through me. I'm convinced there's no greater sensation than creating exactly what you should. The architect drafting his building, the brick mason laying his final cornerstone, the writer's words to books, the farmer sowing seeds. So this day, this morning, wherever you are, settle not for sleep. See what you are actually capable of. The world is waiting for it. All right. So before we get into Mike, ask yourself, do you have a story so strong it'll pull you out of sleep and complacency? And if you don't, you can steal some of his. I really like this part.
Bring the band in. Let's go.
I think the little man and the everyday man in the US is sort of getting crushed by the big, the big companies, the big banks, the big government. And increasingly there's a nation of men and women who sort of feel purposeless and a little bit powerless. And when I read your story, I was really inspired by the fact that you started and self-proclaimed are a everyday man from a small town who became something a little bit bigger. And so I'd be curious to hear from you in your words. What was that journey like?
Well, I think eventually every big shot is just a small shot that never stops shooting. You just got to keep on going. I was a small guy from a small town. I was taught to do small things. The people I was around, my closest of kin, my closest of community, there wasn't a lot of gumption heading toward the outside of those county lines. It was even a gamble for me to go 2 hours west of me to go to Mizzou and walk on to the University of Missouri wrestling team when everybody said, why are you going to go do that? Why are you going to go ride the bench? Why are you going to go? What if you never wrestle? What if you quit? What if you come back with your hat in your hand and we can all say, I told you so? And I think so many of us have been put into a box, whether it be our upbringing, whether it be the people around us, whether it be our own self-sabotaging self-talk or self-sabotaging vision and view and self-image and self-concept of ourselves. And I still battle that little guy from that little town every single day. He's still inside. I've just got really good at duct taping him to the basement of my mind and continuing to believe that if I work hard, I operate with integrity, if I meet the right people, if I'm nice to and serve the right people, they will in turn serve me, and it will in turn serve me, my greater purpose, my greater mission. And then eventually things will work out. And some days it feels like I'm treading water, and some days it feels like I'm shooting to the moon. But I think that's the essence of our human condition. You're never going to feel 100% happy with where you're at. You're never going to feel 100% like you did every single thing that you needed to do. But all in all, success or growth, becoming the man or woman you're supposed to be on the other side is just a bunch of small decisions every single day, a little bit of hard work every single day that adds up to the big success, and it's worked out well for me. Went from wrestling to mixed martial arts and winning some world titles, and now and the biggest fight I could ever ask for.
It's actually wild because you talk a lot about mental toughness. And in particular, I believe you have a mindset coach, not just a boxing coach and not a growth coach, but a coach that helps you, as you've mentioned, like slay the dragons or lock a dragon in a room that shouldn't be let out. Talk to me about that. Why a mindset coach?
And I've had numerous over the years and specific mentors. And even, we're sitting here at Operation Blackside. I mean, these are the guys that I want to be able to call. I want them to call me when they think, hey, I need something. I want to be like these guys here, like the leaders here. We are the sum total of the people that we hang out with or aspire to be like. And obviously today, the world is so connected because I can just hit follow to a million different people and feel like I'm in their lives. But ultimately, if you're doing something impactful with your life, if you're trying your hardest, if you're operating with integrity, you hold your reputation to a very high regard, then eventually those people start being attracted to you as much as you were attracted to them. I had a mindset coach that I've worked with on and off, and we really did. It wasn't necessarily forward-thinking self-image. How do I get to where I'm going to go? Who am I now? What do I stand for? Who is Michael Chandler? What is my story? What are the lies that I've been telling myself for the last 30-something years? What are the pitfalls that I continue to fall back into, the valleys I continue to fall back into because of the way I see myself, the stories that I've told myself, and what do I stand for? I think a lot of us are wandering generalities instead of meaningful specifics, knowing exactly who we are, what we want to do, and what we want to accomplish. It's okay to embark on a journey with no virtual certainty of success or even close to success or even close to it working out the way we want it to work out. But if we move forward by not knowing exactly who we are and what we stand for, you're kind of just a wandering generality, and it's much harder to get from point A to point B. So for me, it was trying to figure out, who am I?
Yeah.
Who am I when I show up as my wife's husband? Who am I when I show up as my kid's dad? Who am I when I show up in a business meeting? Or who am I when I show up in a cage in front of millions of people? All of those questions can be answered before the actual moment. And it takes a lot of time and a lot of introspection and a lot of writing and a lot of thinking, a lot of visualization. And as you alluded to, some dragons I've been able to slay, and some of them I've just been really good at pushing into a corner and being able to manage them, being okay with them being there for the rest of my life, knowing that that's a part of my story. It's one of the chains and the links in the chain of this huge life that I'm going to live here on this earth, and just being okay with constant and never-ending improvement, but knowing who I am, what I stand for, who I want to serve, whose I am, and growing every single day.
Yeah, it's funny because every time I embark on a new business venture, I don't usually call them coaches, but a consultant. So like, if I want to start a new business, I want to go to try to hire the best person I can to start that new business. And the same thing if we're struggling in an area, maybe I need a new sales coach. And so, I get them with a call a week and we break down the stuff that I don't know technically how to do. But I think if you would have told me a year ago, Cody, you need a mindset coach, I would have been like, what sort of nonsense is that? Like fluffy, what? And then I would have felt like, oh, I'm going to spend money on that. And you seem like a tough guy, obviously. And yet, did you ever feel that way? Or how did you get past the idea, if you ever had it, that, that might be fluffy, or it's not a coach who's going to teach you how to hook better, or who's going to teach you how to do something tactically better?
Well, I think ultimately, every single thing that we do, every single thing that we say, everything that we feel, every single aspect of our life always really does go back to our self-image, our self-concept, how we see ourselves, how deserved are we of success? How deserved are you of even embarking on the next business venture? Who are you to think that these people are going to watch, tune in, buy, want the services, or, what is the story that you're telling yourself? And I think for me, I always had such a lowly view of what I brought to the table that I needed to start doing a lot of work, And so ultimately, whenever that cage door closes and Bruce Buffer's screaming my name and says, it's time, and all that kind of stuff, it's not the punches, kicks, knees, and elbows. It's not the techniques. It's not the game plans. It's not all these tactical black and white binary things that people think it is. It really is, do I believe that I am better than that man and I should beat that man tonight here in the middle of this octagon? And that's the same that's true in business, same as that is true in your relationships. It's the same that is true in every single aspect of life. You can be really, really, really tactically good at something, and you can find success year after year or season after season. But eventually, if the self-image itself isn't keeping pace with that, eventually there's going to be burnout, there's going to be self-sabotage, there's going to be things that you're going to fall into to make sure that you don't reach that level, because a man or a woman can never consistently perform in a manner that's inconsistent with the way that they see themselves. You can find success here and there, like we said, tactically. You can be very good tactically at certain things, but eventually to find that long, drawn out, consistent year over year success, it all goes back to the self-image. So for me, I realized that. And I also realize who I am when I step inside of a cage in front of millions of people and I look like a tough guy and I look ripped and I look like that guy, right? They could be on a movie behind King Leonidas on 300, right? I look like that guy, right? But ultimately, that doesn't mean a dang thing if right here between my ears, I don't actually see myself that way and I don't think that I deserve to be there. Ultimately, I realized that the mindset side of things, the self-image side of things was probably, not even probably, it was definitely more important than the tactical side of things.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, I'm trying to imagine, like I'm sure many people do, that, you're in this octagon, you're in this cage, and, it's getting towards the end of the fight, and you are out of breath, and you've taken a few hits, and you can't feel your legs anymore, and you're maybe vaguely aware of the audience shouting the other guy's name. Like, what does it take mentally, and what do you say to yourself in that moment to keep going?
Yeah, well, I think it's the decisions that I've made leading up to that moment, whether it be my 5 years at Mizzou Wrestling where I turned myself into a mixed martial artist, or at least the spiritual being of where I needed to be to go into mixed martial arts, then work on the tactical stuff. All of the work that I've done over the last 14 years to get to that moment. And a lot of that goes back to a couple different things. Gratitude. I do believe I'm operating my best when I'm extremely grateful. When I wake up every single morning, I thank God for another day, the blessings in my life, what I do have. 2 capable arms, 2 capable legs, an awesome platform, a voice to speak, people that look to me and admire me, all of these different things that we can sometimes forget about. I'm very good at just going straight, blinders on, and just running my head into a brick wall, and you tell me to go and I'll go, right? If you're my coach, say, okay, I'll run through that brick wall if you tell me to. But ultimately, being grateful for what I have, and then thinking too, it all started too with Mike and Betty Chandler back in High Ridge, Missouri, my mom and dad, who worked 2 and 3 jobs nonstop to make sure me and my 2 brothers had every opportunity to be successful, to be to where I am today. Sitting here on this chair, speaking to you with the platform I have and the life that I've created for my family now, it all started back with those gifts they gave me. And to give anything less than my best every single day and pour myself into everything that I do is to sacrifice those gifts, is to literally, it's a slap in the face to them. So gratitude, thinking about what they did for me, and then now having the woman of my dreams and having my 2 sons, and now it's so much bigger than just me. If I lose a fight, no big deal. Maybe I lose a little bit of money. Maybe I lose a world ranking. It means so much more for the masterpiece that I'm painting for my 2 sons, the promise that I made to my wife to serve and protect and love and to provide for her. So I have the past that has motivated me and still motivates me. I have my present right now with my family, and ultimately an overarching theme of gratitude. So in that moment, I'm honestly just operating with the muscle memory and the neural pathways and my spirit and my soul continuing to push me forward through all of the hard work, all of the deposits in the bank, if you will, that has led me to that moment to where I can push through, and people are wildly entertained by it.
Yeah, I suppose that makes sense. So in those moments where everybody thinks the minute or the second matters, it's actually just a compilation of your historical actions.
Yeah, well, and we've watched so many movies too where, the guy gets beat down and he's bleeding or whatever, and his inner monologue, or Rocky's inner monologue, or the coach says something, and it's like, sometimes that happens, but for the most part, it's you're in the moment and you are trying to make the best decision you can with the information you have, the split second information that you have right there in the moment. Sometimes you zig when you should have zagged, and sometimes you lose, and sometimes you make bad decisions, and sometimes you go back and watch tape and think, what the heck was I thinking? Can't believe I did that. can't believe I made this decision inside of the confines of competition, but it's all a learning process. And I am where I am today because of my wins and because of my losses, because of my shortcomings and because of my triumphs, and because of, the tears that I've cried and the hard work that I've put in and the pain that I've put myself through, the times I've bled. And ultimately you're able to find something inside of you. So that's why I think it's a bastardization of the blessings that you have to not be pushing yourself every single day. And it sounds a little off-putting to people, like, well, this guy's a little bit intense. It's a little bit crazy. But I mean, I'm here to tell you today that I just have pushed so hard and tried to find the outskirts of my comfort zone in every single aspect of my life to get me to that moment where the lights are shining brightest at your greatest moment of opportunity or at your darkest hour, for you to inherently, spiritually, deeper than just the cognitive thinking of, am I enough? And I want to be able to answer that question with, yes, I am.
What's interesting is you talk about these things that I think a lot of people think sound good. Like, I'm a family man, I'm a family first person. But I remember when we were first texting back and forth, I was like, what do we want to talk about? What businesses do we want to talk about? What products are you really focused on? And we talked about your businesses. We talked about Cram, and we talked about Walk On Fitness, and we talked about, some of your goals for your business. But the line that I won't forget that you texted me was, so here are some of my businesses and hobbies, but my real passion projects are my wife and kids. I engage with a lot of business people, and that's rarely a sentence said up front. Where do you think that family-oriented nature came from? As it seems really important to you. And also, this thing we're at right now, what astounds me is, of like the 5 guys I know the best who have the biggest platforms here, like all 5 of them are super family guys before almost anything else.
I'm 6 years into being a father now, to almost 10 years into being a husband. Some of these guys here, actually almost all of these guys here that you're kind of alluding to, have been in that quest longer, and honestly probably made a lot more money with a lot more businesses and all these other things. And I'm sure they would tell you, we always want to seek the material. We always want to seek whatever it is, the respect and the awe of driving a cool car, or having a nice big house, or having all these zeros in your bank account. And, guys here that would tell you, hey, all that stuff really is cool, but it took me 15 years to learn, or this experience to learn, that what is most important is who you're doing life with and who you're serving, because ultimately it's those things that are going to last forever. And that's what I've said about, winning belts and making a lot of money and all that kind of stuff. All that stuff really is awesome, and it's a means to an end to provide for the family, but nobody's going to give a crap about that stuff a decade from now. My sons aren't going to care about the world titles that I might win or the different accomplishments that I've had. And all they're going to care about is, did you show up and do what you said you were going to do? And did you show up when I needed you? Did you serve me mentally, spiritually, emotionally throughout this process that we call life, And I really did have a phenomenal upbringing. My mom and dad supported me, loved me, took care of me. We felt safe in our home. And for me now, to where I'm at and the success that I have had, it's just, I look at what they did, how hard they tried. And if they tried that hard, and now I have a life that's probably easier than theirs. I work less than they do. I make more money for less time than they had to put in. I have this huge platform that's just such a huge blessing. It just seems like the only right thing to do is have your priorities straight. And for me, my priority always has been, well, okay, I might have this business venture, or I might have this fight that entails this fight camp, or all of the different things that have going on, but how does it affect my family? What lens can I look through it and see it coinciding with the Venn diagram of my family, my reputation, and who I want to be on the other side of it? Because ultimately, the lights are going to fade, and the interviewers are going to stop calling, and all of this stuff is going to be over, and I'm just going to be a retired MMA fighter. And all that's going to matter is the reputation that I have with those amongst the world who are able to watch me fight. And then the most important reputation is, who am I as a father and who am I as a husband? And it's just, both of my sons just deserve that. And my wife deserves that. And she's the most supportive, amazing woman that I could have ever asked for. So it's pretty darn easy to make them a priority.
Take notes, dudes. Yeah. I think, my friend Alex said it really perfectly. He was like, the Queen of England, like arguably one of the most famous people on the planet, had the longest reign in history. You guys watched her funeral and everything, and she died. And how many times have you thought about her today? not 3 or 4 or 6 months later, not once. And so you have a queen of an entire kingdom, and she is irrelevant 6 months after she died. And it sounds a little harsh, except I think it's true. At the end of the day, nobody will remember you, and most of your life will mean nothing except to a very few amount of people. So I think that's really powerful. Now, that said, you have some violence in you, obviously, right? Like, you can't do what you do without some point of violence. And I guess I think about that because my husband's special forces, and he came from a different background than you. A lot more trauma in his background, maybe, at least as far as he would say, and difficulty and strife. But he always talks about how his parents f***ed him up just enough to be a team guy and not enough to be a stripper, you know? Yeah, and he was like, yeah, thank God for that, you know?
Just enough.
Just enough. But like, that violence for you, where does it come from? And how do you tap into it when you have to, you can't gratitude Conor McGregor to the ground. So what happens?
Yeah, I mean, you can't gratitude him to the ground. You can't joy him to the ground. You can't serve other people to put him to the ground. But I think ultimately, for me, the sport of wrestling was the same way. I mean, I wanted to bury people. I wanted to hurt them. I wanted to make them quit. I wanted to make them cry. But it's inside the confines of competition. I don't think about that at all in my everyday life. I mean, if anything, I'm probably the biggest pacifist you might ever meet. I am afraid of confrontation. I don't like confrontation. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't, like, people think, well, shoot, you must have had a bunch of free street fights. That's why you got into mixed martial arts. I never got into a street fight. Number one, I never really got into those scenarios. And number two, I was too afraid to get in trouble. So I think, for me, it's just another competition. It just so happens that people get hurt and stitches get put in and blood gets drawn and people get knocked out and choked out. It looks like such a violent sport. And if you're ever around mixed martial arts or you really dive into it, the people in mixed martial arts, of course, there's some violent ones, some people who really enjoy the violence. I wouldn't say that I enjoy the violence whatsoever. Now, if you watch when that cage door closes, it looks like I'm really enjoying the violence. And I've never once thought, well, I don't really enjoy this violence thing. I'm focused on the task at hand. That last bell sounds, or that guy gets knocked out, or the fight is over, whatever. Then it turns back into, okay, now we'll just go back to being normal again, And I think, if I could really just think about me and who I am, and because I did a lot of this work with my mindset coach, Jim Hensel, and it was like, who am I? And I think God has given me a really awesome gift that I'm extremely grateful for, to be able to live on both ends of the spectrum in a big, big way. Like extreme joy and peace and contentment and service and love. And then the most savage individual that just wants to dominate people inside of a cage. And somewhere in between, I'm always usually living on this side of the spectrum. And then all of a sudden that cage door closes and I've been given a gift to be able to go cross that line to be that guy. And some guys can't in this sport. Some guys live too close over here in the violence, and it shows for better or worse in their fights or in their craft, in their business, in their life. That's why self-image and self-concept and mental health is so important in this world. And I've just done a lot of work, I think, on myself to make sure I show up as the man that I want to show up as in life, in these kind of interactions and with my friends and my family and my colleagues. And then I show up as a completely different person whenever that cage door closes. And it's just, I think it truly is a gift. I think it's something that I didn't choose to. I've never once in my life tried to will myself or visualize myself into a savagely violent person inside of the cage. It just happens. And I think the greatest compliment I ever get is whenever I, meet somebody and hang out with them and they're like, you really are a really nice, cool guy. You're pretty normal. And I'm like, thank you. It's actually because you can watch my highlights and you can see the way that I fight. And rightfully so, I would think the exact same thing about me.
There's a couple sayings. Like, one, I can think, if you think that strong men are scary, wait until you meet weak men. And I think that image of, do you want to be the warrior in the garden or the gardener at war is really important for this time and date that we sit in. And so if you have the capacity for violence, but not the need for violence, that's actually really important to humanity overall. I mean, we know this from the theory of disarmament and what happens at a certain level. Some people need to have arms in order for others to not push forward. So I do think there's a huge place for violence in society that we don't like to talk about. And I think there's also a place in outlets for it, like MMA. Yeah. Most of the people I've met who do MMA A lot of them you wouldn't know, and most of them are incredibly soft, like the people here that are teaching self-defense. And yet, in an action, I'd much rather be in this room than many others.
If you needed to, yeah. And it also goes back to, as you talked about being a gardener in a war compared to being a warrior in a garden. One of my favorite books of all time, John Eldridge, Wild at Heart, talks about how a man's soul and heart was designed, and every man was created for a battle to fight, an adventure to have, and a beauty to win. And in this day and age, in this society, there's less and less people who are seeking adventures to have and battles to fight. And I'm not saying battles to fight like getting in a street fight, but as you talk, like being in here, these men and women are having battles to fight in here, and they're learning things, mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu, all of these different things. Just pushing yourself so that you don't feel the need to push yourself in the wrong direction in other areas, And we've got things backwards in a lot of ways, and it's very important. And I do, even in here, we're doing gun disarmament, and we're saying, hey, okay, what do you do if a person sticks a gun in your face? My wife is here, my son is here, I'm walking down the street, downtown Nashville, whatever. And, the confidence that I have, if that happened, it's something, and I'm not just saying this to boast about myself. I don't know the techniques, but it's just that scenario where I think there's no way that I would not be able to protect my family in this scenario. And I can't imagine what so many, especially men, might think. And with that comes lack of self-image, which then leads to so many different things. And so you just have to be proficient in so many more things than we think we need to today.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I was scrolling through your comments on some of your Instagram posts.
Don't do that.
This is a terrible idea. Jesus, nobody do that. Like, you should go follow like Chandler MMA on Instagram. But I was scrolling through your comments, and whoa, speaking of weak man trying to sound strong, I saw that all over yours. Really violent commentary. And I get a few things, but mostly my husband and I chuckle at them.
Yeah.
But some of yours were really, really intense. I remember being at the McGregor-Poirier fight and hearing people yell and scream when one person gets hurt, and feeling what that energy feels like. I've never felt anything like that before. And so you have such vitriol directed at you. How do you handle haters? How do you handle people that say bad things about you? Is there something that you go to when that happens?
Admittedly, I do read more than I probably should. I probably should just post and not worry about what they say. But I think for me, it could be 20 negative bad things, but then there's one that's just like one of those ones where you get it, I'm sure, as well. Whether they're talking about me helping them with their self-image, me helping them with confidence, me helping them get in the gym, or the way that my fitness app has helped them and gained the confidence, or lost fat, gained muscle, all of these different things. So I want to be in tune with the people that are in tune with me. And I am convinced that a lot of those negative comments sometimes too come from bot farms across the world. Social media is a weird place. But also I do, I'm not naive to think that there's definitely some real people behind those comments. And it's ultimately you just got to keep doing what feels right to you. And the people are going to comment with the way that they comment. And there's been those haters, and there hasn't been social media for hundreds of years, but for hundreds of years, thousands of years, there has been people that are not going to believe in you. They're going to trash you at every single turn. They're going to say things about you that aren't true. And ultimately, it's the highest nail that gets hammered, always. So if you can continue to climb and climb and climb, and so many people are so worried about trying to grab at your heels and pull you down from the rung that you're on, instead of just reaching up and trying to climb to the next rung themselves. Ultimately, it comes with the territory. And, just probably similar to you or any of the other people that we kind of rub elbows with, we take a silent smile every single time we see one of those, because you're doing the right thing. You're doing the right thing when you have that many people saying things about you. And mine is just, I like to talk candidly, but also not sound like a narcissist. But ultimately, I think being a mixed martial arts fighter, a UFC fighter, I'm similar to like your husband, special forces. I mean, there's only so many areas for the male gender where we're like that guy, like that's the guy, right? Maybe I don't want to be just like him, but I want that aspect of it more, So I think fighting in a cage and being on the big platform and doing what I do, looking the way I look, working out as hard as I do. I think there's a lot of aspects of desirable traits that most men would want, but instead of making that life for them themselves, they would rather say something about it and accuse me of steroids or accuse me of this or accuse me of whatever. And it's just, it's part of it.
You ever let it slip and like accidentally feed the troll a little bit? Or are you pretty good at that?
Well, every now and then, yeah, I do. Well, normally, you know what I actually do?
What's your best one? Have you ever had one where you're like, that was a great comeback?
No, I actually never to trolls, but I have had a few good comebacks like to other fighters who have said things. Because I also came into the UFC and nobody gave me any credit, and rightfully so. I was outside of the UFC forever, world champion outside the UFC, which isn't really world champion. You're not the number one guy in the world. It is a world champion, but you're not the number one guy in the world. So I didn't get a lot of respect from my fellow fighters. So I threw a couple of zingers here and there, but for the most part, I'm more of a direct message kind of guy. I don't want to give you the satisfaction of responding to you on that public thread to let everyone else know that I'm even responding to you. So I'll just respond to you in a direct message, which they could screenshot it and show people anyway. And it's not mean. It's not, might be a little snarky, a little condescending, a little bit, Mike Tyson said social media made y'all way too comfortable with talking and not getting punched in the mouth type of,
100%.
And would I ever punch someone in the mouth for something they said? Absolutely not. But every now and then you're like, no, I'm not letting this one slip. The worst is when people completely make stuff up. Like I had a guy make something up. I was like, well, I work with somebody who went to high school with him and he was doing steroids in high school and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, that was a direct message worthy type of comment. And it's like, okay, why don't you go ahead and tell me who that is? It always turns into one more snarky comment, then I go back and they say, okay, actually, it's not true, actually, man. And I'm a big fan. Like, I'm really sorry. The amount of times that it goes complete 180 and they end up being like, well, man, I'm a really big fan, man. Just keep doing what you're doing. I'm like, no response, block, whatever. It's just, it's the
Haters
world we
wave
live in.
the biggest flags, I think. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something in psychology, actually, they talk about that, where one, we have a negative bias as humans, otherwise we're dead, right? And then two, because we have that negative bias, we've realized, oh man, if we talk negative to somebody else, we get 10x the attention that we do from a positive comment. And so I can see where society conditions us to have that reaction.
It's really, really unfortunate.
Yeah. But I think as a fighter, it's fascinating because you really can't punch somebody in the face.
Yeah,
I can, but like not much might be good to go down. Maybe after I use your app.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to be on it.
Well, it's good though too when other people stick up for you, or they'll say something like, "You do realize how badly this guy would beat you up in one punch," and everyone else does the commenting and they go after the trolls, and it's even better. It makes me smile even more than me having to do it. You know, so it's kind of cool.
Well, it's true. So you were on Bellator for a long time.
Yeah, it was like a decade. Yeah.
And top guy there for a long time. Lots of people say you should have been in UFC sooner. Lots of people wonder kind of why that didn't happen, why you didn't get the look from Dana White or whoever. So what's your take on that? Why did that take so long? And then what'd you have to do to finally overcome it?
And it's fine. The way you frame the question is almost like, well, I wasn't good enough to go there, or the UFC wouldn't have taken me earlier. And I think that's what a lot of people thought. I honestly was making the best business decision that I could for a very long time. The business of mixed martial arts it's a beautiful, beautiful thing for certain people, and it's a tough, tragic thing for a lot of people. I was making a great living outside of the UFC and also saw myself continuing to build my platform outside of the UFC. So therefore, when I did come over, it was going to be a better business decision, right? And ultimately too, there was a lot of factors involved. It never felt like the right time to finish my contract, test free agency, and then field offers from other organizations until I think it was 2020. I had my last fight in Bellator in August of 2020. Knocked out a former UFC champion, Benson Henderson. It was a tough fight for me because he's a tough guy to put away. He's extremely durable, and he's a tough guy to look good against. You can beat somebody, but you have these fights where you're like, it wasn't that beautiful, graceful, dominant, because he's just good everywhere. So it was a scary time, but I made the decision to bet on myself. And then it's just crazy how, and I talk about this often, is so many doors in life stay closed and stay locked until it's the exact right, perfect time. And that door stayed locked or felt like it should have been locked for such a long time. Then it was time to be opened, and I just kicked the door down. We had Khabib was the number one guy in the world. He retires. Conor and Poirier were tied up in their trilogy that they were about to have, the fight you're alluding to. So that gave me the title shot after my UFC debut win, and it all worked out perfectly for me. So people say, man, you should have been in the UFC much sooner, because I hear that a lot. And I think I came over at the exact right time. Or maybe that's just me accepting my current circumstances and not having to look back and say, well, I woulda, shoulda, coulda. But it worked out perfectly.
Definitely healthier. That's interesting. So I don't know anything about UFC negotiations and how the business of UFC, or even if we don't say UFC, fighting works. Like, how does that work? Obviously, people are making hundreds of millions of dollars off of fighters. When you go into a fight, and you can speak in generalities, obviously, like deciding to go against McGregor, what turns on in your business brain? What do you have to negotiate, and who gets what? Like, you have an agent that gets something, then you have then obviously the UFC takes something, then you got to negotiate against McGregor. How does that work?
Yeah, so we're all under contract. So per
fight? Or do you have a standing salary with the UFC?
No salary. You only get paid if you fight, you know? And it's usually, you could sign a 4-fight deal, you could sign a 6-fight deal, an 8-fight deal, and it'll be, say, 2 years or 6 fights, whatever happens sooner. If you got your 6 fights in 1 year, your contract's over. Or if you had 3 fights in a 2-year period, your contract is over. So it either goes by term, which is the time, or the amount of fights. You negotiate those terms, your manager or your agent, manager, or attorney. For me, I've had one manager my entire life who was also a criminal defense attorney who has negotiated thousands of contracts at this point, and a lot of NFL, NBA, and UFC contracts now. We've done the best that we could to protect me, also leave enough meat on the bone for the current promotion to always make them feel like they're sometimes getting a deal, if you will. I think you hear a lot of people who would never ever say that. They want to get as much as they possibly can, and they're going to dig their heels in, and it usually doesn't work out, because one thing that you have to realize, this is not just mixed martial arts. This is you. This is everybody in this room. This is everybody in every endeavor, every single scenario, besides a very, very, very tiny fraction of the entire populace. We're all replaceable. Every single person is replaceable. If you shut your phone off and you stop making content, there's gonna be someone else who's just gonna be just as big as you. That can well up something inside of you. We're like, wait a second. But if you can set aside
my
that.
TikToks are important.
Well, but yeah.
Who would be able to survive without that?
Well, it's true, but it's one of those scenarios where in mixed martial arts especially, we think that the show won't go on without us, and it will. I promise you that. We've got mega superstars that retire, or Conor being out for 2 full years, John Jones being out for 2.5, 3 years. They can build new stars, and 1 year from now, there's going to be a guy that they're making money off of, just like they were making money off of these other guys. And having that approach, I've always had that approach. I had that approach in Bellator. I had that approach now with the UFC. We're all replaceable. The show will go on. And I think there's a certain level of freedom that comes with that. It sounds like you're giving away your freedom, saying, well, they're in control more than you're in control. But ultimately, there's so much more freedom that comes with that, because you can just operate, in my opinion, doing the best that you possibly can, and realizing that this whole show is going to end eventually for you. Nothing lasts forever. And yeah, you negotiate these contracts, and then when your contracts are up for negotiation, you get a new one, or
not.
There's time, or not, or you're 3 fights into a contract. They say, hey, you have grossly overperformed on this contract. We're ripping it up. Call us money. We're ripping this up. We're doing a new deal.
Interesting.
That happened with the UFC. I was 4 fights in, and they said, hey, we're doing a new deal. You deserve more. I'm like, okay. Now, had I been like, hey, I deserve more, guess how many more fights I would have had on that contract? I would have had to have those 2. We never would have went back to the negotiation table.
Interesting.
So if you take care of those who sign your paycheck, be a good employee, show up on time, do more than what is asked of you, it usually works out.
So if I was to do a pie chart like this of like how a fight works, it's like, I don't know, I have an agent, and like our agent manager fee is like 20%, right? And then you have your promotion fee or distribution. And I'd think of that in my business and say like my distribution costs me, so all my marketing people, is probably like another 30%. So that's 50% of what I make right there. Then on top of that, because our net margins at the end are more like 40%, we get to maybe keep 40 cents of every dollar that we make. On top of that, I have like administration, and I have like legal and all that on the back end. So like in my world, maybe I keep 40 cents of every dollar that I make. Not exactly for you, but theoretically in fighting, what does that look like? Like who do you have to pay, and how does that business shake out? Because there are people like Jake Paul, right, that are like, oh, I'm going to create this whole thing, and I want to own the whole pie chart theoretically.
Yep.
And instead of me keeping 40%, I'm keeping 60, and they get 40.
Yeah. So I mean, we pretty much as mixed martial artists, we're worried about two things: your fight contract and your fights, and then endorsement deals, sponsorship deals, relationships with company. Sometimes that starts out as free, like everybody, it starts out as free product. Then maybe it starts out, then you get a little bit of cash and then a little bit of product. And then you get more and more cash and more product and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you end up with equity in companies, whether you made an investment financially or you're made an investment financially and sweat equity. And then, I just pay my management, if you will. They take their percentage.
Is there a company around you besides your manager? Or is everything you do?
My management they're an agency at this point. When we started out, it was like a skeleton crew of just two guys, basically. Now they got, 4 or 5 people working underneath them. Someone handling travel and medical, someone handling going out and bird dog and finding deals. And so they've continued to grow, which is, good for all of us because there's a bigger pool to be able to find opportunities in. So I just pay that percentage, and then
do you have like a PR
taxes.
person?
I don't. I probably should at this point.
And no social media person either. That's you too?
I don't. Well, I have a full-time media director. So he shoots all of my content, edits all of my content. We do our podcast episodes.
Posts it.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't. I do all the posting. We are in a transition right now where I've realized, hey, it's time to go a little bit harder throughout this year, especially leading up to this big fight. Probably going to have him take over some of it and then him post probably 50% of my content and me post the other 50, because I never wanted to relinquish all of that control, because I always wanted every word that was sent out to people going to be me. It was going to be me, and it was going to be authentically me. And truthfully, what I've realized now is it still will be mine. It just won't be me writing it right now and then posting it. It will be us actually scheduling it and then me writing it, today, and it not post for a month, but it was my words,
of course, batch content.
Yeah, or if it's a clip of a podcast or whatever, pulling out that clip and then me expanding on that, if you will, and then making sure it's just all my words that are going out to my people who, I think they trust me at this point. I think I've created a trustworthy following with a reputation of people who are
totally,
who say, hey, I like what that guy stands for, so I want to make sure I stay true to that.
One of your big things is, if you want to influence many, you have to cast a wide net, which is why you have this podcast that is not just about fighting. It's about wisdom and philosophy and theory and ideology. And it's actually quite profound, having listened to quite a few episodes. And so I think the other way to think about it too is just like, how big can you get if you're in between fights, sending out tweets, it's hard.
Yeah.
But if you can allow other people to become the shepherds of your message, then actually you can have quite a flock, because there's not just one of you out there tending it.
Coming from that too, I always wanted to break the mold of what people thought a fighter was. I mean, you think fighter, okay, you're like, okay, he looks like this and he acts like this and he lives his life a certain way. Yeah, exactly. Lives his life a certain way. And it's like, I've always wanted to break the mold. I always wanted that interaction of, holy cow, like you're like a normal guy. It's not exactly what I thought a fighter was. And it's like, well, not all of us are like that, but that's how I am. And maybe I fight in a cage for a living, but it's not the most important thing about me. So that's why my podcast is called Walk On Wisdom. It's not, MMA wisdom or, and we talk about mixed martial arts here and there. We'll take only MMA questions from our viewers, and then we'll make them into MMA episodes. But so far we've only done maybe 1 or 2 actual MMA episodes. And a lot of them are just, hey, I'm going through this right now, or hey, I'm struggling with this, or hey, this, my girlfriend broke up with me, or whatever it might be. I'm going through this transition. And then I just sit there and I always start the podcast with, hey, I am by no means an expert in anything, but I've been around the world a couple times and experienced a lot of great things. And here's what I have to say about it.
I love that. Let's talk business again for a second. So a lot of people have built giant empires with audiences like yours. I mean, not to use McGregor, but you do have this fight coming up with him. But he's sold his tiny little whiskey company for $500 million, right? We've had The Rock, not quite a fighter in the exact sense, but, sell his, or not sell his, grow his to be worth, I think, close to now $1 billion, right? What do you see for you? Do you want a business empire? And if so, what would it be of?
Right now, focusing on this fight, building my platform, and then continuing to rub elbows with, like the guys we have here, and doing business with them, doing good business with good people, whether it be real estate, whether it be in actual businesses like Cram, having my fitness app. Because ultimately, for me, it's always about the people behind the product, if you will, valuing the people over profit, valuing my voice going out to people and making them feel something. What I want most when I'm fighting is to make people feel something, make them feel something about their life, make them feel something about what they're going through, make them feel something about what they can accomplish. If a small guy from a small town who was taught to do small things, little old me can do it and somehow end up on that big stage, well, so can you. And I want them to feel that. So making investments in real estate, into companies, building my platform. I'd like to speak on stages and do big events and really get that one-on-one connection like we have here at Operation Blackside. I mean, the people that we have here, then they're all successful in their own right, They all have businesses, or they're entrepreneurs, or they're all doing awesome things. But to get this opportunity to hang out with them, I mean, we just got done with lunch and sitting there at a picnic table talking to a couple business owners. Andy's from Madison, Alabama. Joe is from Cincinnati, or where, you're just getting to meet all these people. I think there could be a product or two in there. I think Cram is going to crush it. I'm excited.
Well, let's talk about that one a little bit, because that's a pretty cool product. So I looked it up. It's Cram PB&J replacements, sort of like, what is that other one? It's like Uncrustables or something.
Yeah, Uncrustables been around forever.
Lots of processed stuff in there, basically sugar and additives, as opposed to this really clean product. So you are one of the backers of it. Why did you choose like a PB&J, and why that company?
Well, ultimately, it goes back to the people.
Yeah, those two.
Austin and Ruth. It's a mother and a son who started it out of Colfax, California, kind of Northern California. It took me a couple conversations to realize, okay, these I believe in these people. And then also you try the product. It's absolutely delicious. For its nutrition profile and how nutritionally sound it is and nutritionally dense it is, how healthy it is for you, the fact that it also tastes good was enough for me, because obviously, like you said, Uncrustable, it's been around forever, owned by Smuckers, tons of added sugar, bleached white flour bread, and all of these different things, seed oil after seed oil after seed oil. We have no seed oils. The preservatives were actually, it's a natural preservative. We're nationwide in Sprouts. There's no sugar added, 19 grams of protein in our B, 16 grams of protein in our OG. And we're working on some research and development right now for whether it be an almond, kind of an almond butter, because some people are allergic to peanuts, or, tree nuts. And there's all these different things. And they're forward thinking like that. They want to have numerous products on the market by the end of this year and then next year. So
is it profitable yet?
Profitable. Yeah. We are nationwide in Sprouts, and we've had conversations with, I won't say who we've had conversations with, because I don't know if they're going to happen, but we got some really good options as far as nationwide, big time grocers, because obviously we started online. That's how every business pretty much starts. And so you kind of get those sales to be able to get nationwide in Sprouts. So, but ultimately it's the people behind it, and they're awesome. And we just continue to keep on connecting the dots between all kinds of different people. And I think Cram's going to do very well.
So I've found that being married and having a lot going on, having a big platform, being relatively successful maybe, or just being married in general can be really hard. And so, my husband and I do this thing called team every day. I would say we do it 60% of the time, where in the evening we get together and we have this small little sort of framework that we take each other through, so that we're touching base on some of the stuff that's bothering us through the day, maybe with each other or in life in general. Also just things that we appreciate about one another. And it's become a ritual for us that's helpful. For you and your wife, is there anything that you do habitually, or a framework that you use to stay sane amidst the chaos?
Habitually, not all the time, but we have tried to be intentional about, similar to what you said, actually sitting down and going through our schedule, because we don't like surprises. Nobody likes surprises in general. I mean, some people can live like that, but whenever you live a life like ours, where she's got a full-time job, she's a career woman, we got our 2 children, we got me and all the craziness that I'm doing as well. Life can also sometimes happen so fast that you realize, holy cow, I didn't realize what was coming up. We didn't realize we had that. And then all of a sudden, what you thought was going to be kind of a down week to be able to kind of hang out and get back to neutral turns into a very chaotic week. So us actually planning things out, and this was a huge step for me. It was kind of a beautiful opposite ends of the spectrum. My wife was so she was in kind of medicine, where it's just like very binary, very black and white. everything was kind of planned out. You know, you go to school and then you get your degree and then you go and you get your job and then you work your hours and you kind of, that's medicine, right? Whereas mine is, I don't know if I'm going to make $0 for the next 3 months or I can make $1 million in the next month. I don't know. You know, I might fight next week. I might fight a year from now, you know? So she came from this, hey, I like to have everything planned out. And I came from like I can't plan anything out because I don't know what the heck is going to happen. So she's become more towards the center and I've gotten better at planning things as well. So for us, actually making sure that we have things on the calendar, me being more proactive where I wasn't thinking as much about how it affected the entire family or us or her career. And her career is extremely hectic right now as well. Going off of that, obviously that's more kind of habitual or tactical. But then an overarching theme for us is me making sure that even when I've had the success that I've had and she hasn't needed to work in years, she wants to work and she enjoys work and she gets value out of work. She gets purpose out of work. She has arguably works more now than she did when we first got together, and she needs to work. She doesn't need to work even half as much as she needed to back in the day when we first got together, but she probably works more now and makes more now and provides more now than she ever has. And I've always gave her that ability to do so. And she needed that. A lot of guys did not understand her. They didn't understand that she was married to medicine. They didn't understand that, oh, well, if she doesn't text back in an hour or 2 hours or call back is because she was doing a sterile procedure in the emergency room. And it became this personal thing. And for me, thank God she came into my life at the right time where I was very secure in myself and I was in love with mixed martial arts and she was in love with medicine and our roads converged together. So me just making sure I always give her the leeway to be her own person, pursue her own thing. She never wanted to be a mixed martial artist wife or a professional athlete's wife. She never wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's some of the hardest work that you can ever do. But ultimately, she knows what she wants to do, and I've always given her the leeway, the permission to do those things. And in turn, I get permission to do all the crazy things that I'm doing and pursue the crazy things that I'm doing. And so I think that love and that mutual respect pays so many dividends day after day, season after season, in the tough times, in the easy times, and every time in between, because we truly are so equally yoked when it comes to that.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I think the world right now is having this weird mix-up about genders and femininity and masculinity and in so many different ways that I try to largely not pay attention to. But one thing that I've found is, because I've been a career person for a long time, is that it does seem today like you need a man, if you're going to have a career and you're going to be kind of a woman who's going to be relatively forceful or in her masculine a lot, however the hippies like to say it in Austin, then you basically do need this man that's really confident in that. And, you know, my husband being in his background, he could care less. He's like the least motivated by money human I've ever met in my life. He just does not let what society says should define him ever. He will walk around in mandals and jorts and a Hawaiian button down, and he will be the baddest dude in the room and will show it to nobody. He could give a fuck. And I think it's really rare, but it's really powerful for people to hear men like you say that, because there's this one side, which is like, we were coming to this event and one of our team members' friends, we were looking at Operation Black Site. And I was like, tell us ideas, questions, what should we do to film here? And they didn't know me, obviously, and they didn't know who I was married to, but they were like, why are you going to an event that is focused on toxic masculinity? And why would you support that? And I like chuckled on the inside because I'm like, if this is toxic masculinity, like we're in trouble. This is just humans being hard to kill, which really actually has nothing to do with whether they have a penis or a vagina. It just tends to be a good idea generally. But I wonder what your thoughts are on, one, this idea of if you're tough and you're hard, you're a toxic dude. Have people said that to you? And do you have feelings on that one way or the other?
I've been, called that or accused of that or saying that I'm perpetuating that narrative. But toxic masculinity is, it's a real thing. There's masculinity, or there are men they're toxic, but it isn't because of the way that God created a man. It's because of the societal pressures, the box that we put ourselves in, the literal chain and collars that we put around our neck, and we're being held back or we're being pushed into the corner, or we're being told that we can't do this, or being told that we should do that. And we're being pulled in so many different ways. And what it means, the definition of what it means to be a man has continued. It's never changed philosophically. It never should have changed, but societally, it has continued to change. And even going back to my wife, the harder I work, the more purpose-driven I am, the more a little bit kind of off my rocker, blinders on, going towards my purpose, what I need to go to perform, to be who I need to be, ultimately makes me the best husband I can possibly be, the best lover I can possibly be, the softer I can possibly be, because you lose that softness when you don't have that hard. You really do. And then it just becomes this facade of being a tough guy, the facade of being equipped, the facade of being a real man. No person or no man who engages in those kinds of activities or actions that could be deemed toxic masculinity in its truest form is an actual real man. They are a small child with deep, deep wounds, and they never truly grew up. They never truly grew into the man that God created them to be. And a lot of times it's not their fault. It could be their parents. It could be the things that have happened to them in the past, the seasons that they have gone through that has just turned them into who they are in a negative way. But I think ultimately being able to protect yourself, protect your family, stand up for your family, provide for your family, having a battle to fight, an adventure to have, and a beauty to win is what makes a man a man. And that is the healthiest way and the healthiest thing on the planet. And it is interesting. I mean, yeah, I fight in a cage for a living. I try to knock people out. I try to choke them out. I fight them. I try to make them bleed. Ultimately, if I am impacting people, reaching people, making people feel something, inspiring and motivating people through the way that I'm living my life and through my performances, it's ultimately me pursuing my passion and fulfilling my purpose, which then in turn makes it vastly more hard for me to actually be toxically masculine, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've never liked the term much. I think it's so misleading. I think there's just toxic. There are women who are toxic feminists.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
men
exactly.
Who are toxic,
if there's toxic
men.
masculinity, then there's definitely toxic femininity.
100%.
And truthfully, if there was a definition, I would say, okay, there's definitely a small subsect of people who are fit that mold, if you will.
Yeah, I think if like AOC and Andrew Tate had a baby, we would just have the two of those like all together, you know?
Right.
Just both sides. The problem is, again, in this world of social media, the extremes get all the views, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we see it all the time. It's so fascinating on YouTube and everywhere else. But if I say something like toxic masculinity, or if I say something like communism, you know, on either side of the thing, you're going to get all these views and all these whatever. And I think one thing you've done really well is you've kind of stayed out of the noise.
Yeah, sometimes I was just having a conversation in the taco line here, and I know what I stand for. I probably should stand up more. I should probably be more vocal. You know, I think the best thing that we can do too, even going back to us making sure we don't get put in a box too, is, yeah, I mean, we could have that conversation. I probably could be more vocal about what I truly believe. And I think it's going to offend some people, and it's also going to get people to say, heck yeah. But ultimately, just operating in a sense that you truly feel like you are saying what you want to say when you want to say it, or as much as you want to say it, doing what you want to do as much as you want to do it, and not having anybody tell you that you need to, or that you should do more or should do less. And for me, I've always just kind of operated that way, where I want to do what I want to do and act the way I want to act and say what I want to say. And there'll be times where I say, well, I can't believe I said that, or well, I can't believe I did that. Well, that's going to get some unfollows. That's going to get some hate. That's going to be a headline, but it's all part of it.
Yeah, you're all over YouTube right now. We were searching your name and it's like videos everywhere. We need to find a way to get you monetized on other people's stuff that they talk about. Yeah, we have a saying at Contrarian Thinking, which is civilize the mind, make savage the body, build the bank account. We kind of believe that you need to have financial freedom typically before you can have physical freedom, aka like work where you want, when you want, on what you want. And then finally, you could have philosophical freedom, freedom of your mind. And in a society in which most people today, 1 out of 5 people will die broke, which is wild in a world where we have all this. I think one of your missions is, and where I kind of want to wrap, is on that make savage the body. Like you have Walk on Fitness. You obviously are in great shape. You've got about 37 abs.
36.
Okay, right around there. And so fitness is big for you. But obviously America needs it. We're more obese than ever. We have more chronic disease than we ever have. And we have more mental health issues than we've ever had. So why walk on fitness? And if you could say in like 3 words, like, what do you think, if you were just a normal human who didn't get paid to have like 36 abs, what would you be telling them they need to do today?
You've got to start somewhere, and I think and truthfully, obviously I've been in, organized athletics since I was 13 years old, and I've now been a professional athlete for 14 years. So I get paid to be fit, I get paid to work out essentially, right? And fitness is so intimidating to so many people. And they say, well, I'm overweight now, or I got bad knees, or, well, my mom and dad were overweight and their mom and dad were overweight. And this family tree is just a bunch of overweight people, and we tell these stories, and we think I'm not going to be able to see the results that I want to see. So therefore I'm not going to start. I think if we wait to start whenever the conditions are perfect, or we have a perfect plan, or there's any kind of uncertainty whatsoever, if we wait until you have the perfect plan or it's going to be certain, you're just never, ever going to start. It's just part of it. So that's why I created Walk On Fitness. The hardest part for me is the fact that I did create one that is for higher level fitness, higher level athletes. Yeah. But our leg program, anybody can do it. Our upper body program, anybody can do it. My guided on camera, body weight only circuits, anybody can do those. Any fitness levels. It doesn't matter if you do all the reps or you do 100 pounds lighter than I'm doing. That's the biggest thing. Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing. Yeah. Well, that's the biggest thing is here's the workout, here's the plan. It's proven to work. I've been doing it over the last 22 years as a professional athlete, essentially since wrestling. These are the exercises that I've done to create this body. And the hardest part about fitness too is everyone wants that secret. What is the secret? What's the silver bullet? And there really isn't, besides consistently being consistent day after day, diligent in the small things. So then and only then can you have the big breakthroughs, the big success, or the body that you want, the fitness that you want, which then in turn turns into mental clarity that you want, which then in turn goes into body confidence, spiritual confidence, the way you carry yourself. So fitness has a way of unlocking doors that almost nothing else can. But like you said, you're going to see aspects of it in every single aspect of your life. If you got your fitness in order, your relationships are going to thrive, your finances are going to thrive, your self-image is going to thrive, every single aspect of your life is going to thrive. So it's very easy for me to talk about it because I've seen it in my own life, and I've seen it in so many other people's lives. So many of the success stories that we've had with Walk On Fitness has been awesome. So,
well, what I like about it too is I was in the gym the other day, and there's these girls in there, and they're trying to get the butt. Every girl wants a butt. So they have these little vibrating things that are connected to their butt. Have you seen this?
Oh, like electronic things?
Like a little electrodes. Oh, wow. Yeah. And it's hooked up to this thing. And so they're doing movements while they've got the thing hooked up. But then they've got these tiny little legs, and they've got these tiny little arms, and there's like no muscle there. And I think one of the cool things about Walk On Fitness, when I was looking at it, is, you want to be healthy. Yeah. Because it looks nice, when you look good naked. Like, that's rad. But also there's just a longevity thing, which is super linked to athleticism, right? Yeah. And so sure, you could hook up electrodes, you can do a Brazilian butt lift, you could take this drug that everybody's taking because the Kardashians took it. But at the end of the day, like, you might look good, but you're actually not doing so great.
Yeah,
and so
you're not healthy.
Right.
You're not healthy.
And I think one of the few things people don't realize about MMA is it's just all out athleticism. Yeah. Like, you don't really care about the muscles, though you do have to wear the underwear in the ring. Which, do you get nervous when you walk out in the underwear?
No.
You're not thinking about the underwear.
No, I've been wearing a singlet. You know what a wrestling singlet is? A wrestling, like, it looks, like a leotard look at that. I mean, I've been wearing that since I was 13, 14 years old. So it's like, well.
So if you think you look good in it, you put it on, you're like, check out that.
I used to check myself out a little bit. Be like, okay, butt's looking good. Okay, sucking it a little bit. No, but you would think though. I mean, you have millions of people watching. You're like, well, hopefully these shorts don't have a wardrobe malfunction, but I've gotten so used to it. It's just like, I'm used to wearing very minimal clothes in front of a lot of people. So
I feel that.
Yeah.
It's like a bikini.
Yeah, exactly.
Before you get your ass kicked.
Exactly.
Before you kick somebody else's ass.
Yes. But like you said too, I mean, that the fitness aspect of it. Yeah. I mean, people, and even though we talk about the butt electrodes and whatever, at least they're doing something, that's, I guess I would only say that at least they're doing something. It's not what I would do if you're only like, hey, here's my entire body. I only want this muscle group to be good, hard, big, whatever it is.
Juicy.
Juicy. Yeah, whatever the kids are saying, juicy. But so it's yeah, I mean, ultimately too, from head to toe, are you being more proficient to be able to go throughout life and not create injuries and be able to provide for your family and be able to not fall down a set of stairs because you can't catch yourself because you're overweight or your muscles don't fire. You know, the amount of people who are walking around, but they're not really walking the way we were created to walk. They're just moving forward, and they slip on one little crack, they fall, and they break a bone, and
Can't get up.
before you know it, you can't provide for your family. You know, especially men. You know, I mean, that's mainly my audience. You know, take care of yourself so then you can really take care of those that you love.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, Jordan Peterson, right? Like, he was pretty overweight, wasn't known anywhere internationally. His daughter got him on a pretty crazy diet, and he started working out. Now the dude doesn't shut up. He's all over the place. Yeah. Big platform, you know? So I do think you're right. Well, this was awesome. You're the man. I'm excited to see you in multiple different ways on The Ultimate Fighter, and then also your fight with McGregor. I think it's just really cool to see a very tough dude show a very soft and theoretical side. So I'm stoked to see you crush some skulls.
Thank you. I will. I'll keep doing it.
Yeah, buddy.
Chandler's the man. Let's get right into the deal of the week. So I became friends with Mike, and we went back and forth on Instagram, and I was looking at his comment section, and holy hell, first of all, do not do that. It's crazy in there, which got me to this quote from his potential competitor. This week they love you, next week they hate you. Just be sure you get paid both weeks. Conor McGregor. Since fighting fans are so brutal, how do fighters make money to counter that? A class action lawsuit against the UFC kind of gave us some insight into how fighters make money and what they have to do to get clever with some of the stuff that I call the core satellite model. So making money fighting, yes, but mostly surrounding fighting. So Rachel, you did a bunch of research on how much they make per fight. What did you find out?
So the TLDR is that fighters like Conor McGregor, Anderson Silva, and John Jones earned about $2 million to $7 million per fight from 2011 to 2016.
Which seems like a lot, right?
To me, I mean, I don't watch a lot, but I know after researching that this is nothing.
Yeah, what's crazy is how much smaller of a percentage they earn than the other US sports leagues. So we were looking at the numbers. UFC revenue split versus the other US leagues. NBA all the way to MLB are somewhere between 51 and 45%. UFC is 13 to 14%. Nice job.
To get your face smashed in, you know? Like, oh, man.
I know. So the fighters have to actually get really clever with their core satellite model, basically. And I think McGregor's a really good example of this. So let's talk about how much money McGregor made and break down some of the numbers. Okay, so as far as we can figure out, when McGregor made his UFC debut in like 2013, he basically cashed a welfare check on the way to the airport and won in 67 seconds, which is awesome. So he was paid $16K for his first fight, $8K to show, another $8K if he won, and then a big bonus if he hit a KO or a knockout. So McGregor also gets paid $5 to $10 million annually off of endorsements. But his real money is in like the whiskey company proper, McGregor Fast, the sport agency, the Irish Stout. And that's what ultimately made him, I think, the highest paid athlete ever. So we were looking at the numbers for Proper 12. Basically, the whiskey company offered McGregor a cash-based sponsorship deal in 2016, but McGregor was smart, and his manager, whose name is Audie, I hope I'm not butchering that, decided to partner up with them because he realized the power of a spirits business blasted behind 55 million social media followers with McGregor. So Proper 12 would then go on to sell 200,000 cases in its first 6 months on the market, and they later sold their 51% stake in the business for about $600 million, which I thought was wild. And that's how he's made $650 million. But if you think about the part that's crazy, is he but he made $50 million from the fighting and $600 million from the other things.
I do want to point out that, like with a lot of athletes, it is really difficult to see how much they're getting paid and how much money that they're making in sponsorships. So I'd be interested to know like a financial breakdown of how much he makes right now.
Yeah. There's a guy I follow on Twitter that I really like, his brother, Anthony Pompliano. His brother, Joe Pompliano, does a ton of these threads
the
on
Pomp
athletes.
Brothers. Yeah.
You know those guys.
Yeah.
So anyway, Joe has great breakdowns of this if you want more detail. I think the overarching thing here that's interesting is, you know, no matter what business that you're in, you can always have a bigger solar system than you can have a single planet. And so that's why I always think about the core of what you do. You know, let's say you're an actor, you get paid to act in movies, but what's the solar system or the satellites that you can launch all around it that can make you more money? And I think Connor's a perfect example of that. Also, Mike's the man, and Mike has launched a healthy PB&J company that I tried that was actually delicious. And then he also now has a tequila company called Hiatus. So I think a lot of these athletes are realizing they can't make all the money in the sport. Plus, you make a ton of money, but how many of these guys go broke because their career is not very long? And once they stop playing, they stop earning. And like you can only take so many hits to the face before you got to retire.
You know, that kind of reminds me of a friend of the podcast, Brian Johnson, productizing himself. Just really interesting how we're starting to see the rise like across industries, not just sports, of people really diving into how can I make money off of my likeness to like the nth degree, because I will not, in Brian's case, I'm sure there's only so much like YouTube videos of his life that he wants to do forever and ever.
I cannot relate.
You're like, keep me on this, baby. But like doing something like creating a product, like I saw he had olive oil, that makes total sense. You know what I mean? Like productizing something, using your like likeness, but maybe not having to play the game as one would say, I guess, forever.
Yeah, it goes back to like even the name of this podcast, The Big Deal. It's like we see all the tiny deals running around us, but we miss the big deal. And, I think about that often, about what game are we playing? Do we actually play the right game? And are the deals in front of us the ones that we should take? And I think breaking down examples from athletes and billionaires and big deal makers teaches us how to apply it in our own life, which is really, really cool. I mean, college athletes are going to be able to do this soon because they're actually going to be able to make some money. And they're going to have to be smart about the way that they do it and become independent centers of gravity as opposed to just athletes.
How much does the women's basketball players making in college? That's what I want to know. I feel like I've been seeing a lot of, as somebody that does not watch sports at all, been seeing a lot about women's basketball. That Pomp Brothers giving you guys content ideas.
Well, I'm not sure anybody's really wondering how much the women's basketball players make.
Dude, they're bringing in eyeballs.
Are they?
Yeah, they're bringing in crazy eyeballs.
Why?
Oh my gosh, what's that one girl's name that's a powerhouse? Caitlin Clark.
What's she doing?
She's just killing it in the basketball world. And she's like, I have seen her now. Like Dave Portnoy talked about her on BFF podcast. Like
that's how I know you've made it.
Yeah. But I want to know how much money that girl's making on brand deals. Cannot be a little amount.
That's amazing. Good for her. She should definitely grab that money while she's got it.
Yeah, if she wants to come on the podcast.
Tell us how much you make, Caitlin.
Yeah. Come on. We'll
ask you all the questions that you wish nobody had ever asked you.
We'll make it super uncomfortable. It'll be great.
Okay, I want to get into CEO story time a little bit because there were some studies that totally blew my mind. So let's get into that really quick. So one of my favorite lines from Mike Chandler was this one that he said, which is, I don't take advice from my doubts. And he's a machine, like never misses a workout, runs multiple companies, killer dad, hard. So I wondered why. And it's something I see a lot with MMA guys, mixed martial artist guys. And here's something I thought was fascinating that I think you're going to like the statistic. The statistic blew my mind. And it goes back to doing things that help you increase your self-control as much as humanly possible. Why? There's a study across hundreds of boys who did jujitsu and a control group for those who didn't. The kids who did jujitsu for just 1 to 3 times a week for 45 minutes on average increased their self-control by double digits versus their peers. They stopped being easily distracted, they focused more, they did what needed to be done, or what's called inhibitory control. In a world constantly trying to distract us, apparently you do more BJJ, you can be more disciplined and hard to kill. So interesting. And also, why that matters, I think, is because the more self-control or discipline you have, it turns out the more likely you are to be successful, according to most of the data. So maybe the thing to take away is that we put our kids in BJJ.
I know it shows discipline. I'm just so scared of putting a kid in fighting.
Would you put a kid in football?
No.
Oh yeah, I mean, I get that.
I do think it shows discipline though. Like I see what you're saying.
I think that's normal. I have a good girlfriend that put her kids in fighting and she had the most incredible experience. So they're on the mats, and if you've ever been around little boys, they're crazy.
Yeah.
Right? So he's like 8 years old or something like that, 10 years old. And he's on the mat doing great. Then he comes to his mom, and he kind of is giving his mom a hard time. And he sort of like, kind of like pushes his mom a little bit, like little kids do, And she chastises him. And the instructor sees it and looks over at the kid and calls him over and says, "What is your mom?" He goes, "Family." "What do we never do to family?" "Hit our family." "What do we do with our family?" "We protect our family."
Oh.
No. And then he goes, "If you ever do that again and I ever see that again, you are not allowed back on this mat." And she's like, it
Heck yeah.
was revelatory. She's like, that kid never messed up again and never acted out because, you know, as a mom, at least from what I can hear my parents tell me, you can tell your kids things until they're blue in the face, but hearing it from an outside influence and one of respect is something totally different. So I think the world would be a better place if more people learned what it felt like to get hit and if words had consequences.
Yeah. As I say this though out loud, I guess the thing I'm most worried about is I don't want to have a kid with like some CTE issue. So I guess that's one thing I guess if there's not an issue with like concussion central happening, I was in Kung Fu and so were all my siblings. My shout out Sifu Jamie. He came to my birthday party I think up until I was like 21. And like when my dad was deployed was like somebody that like really came in to our lives and like was a great person. So I guess like we had a really good experience with it and my brothers definitely did. And I saw this quote once and I'm totally going to butcher it, but it was something like uncoachable kids make unmanageable adults. And if you see your kid kind of like getting coached on the sidelines, like that might be really difficult for you as a parent. But honestly, like it's probably going to work out pretty well for them in the end. Just moving on like into the workspace as an adult, and that I do think that's like an interesting perspective.
I mean, I can understand why you wouldn't want to put your kid in MMA, like getting kickbox.
I'm thinking like Conor McGregor style.
Yeah, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is really wrestling. So the likelihood of that's pretty small is my understanding. But you know, where I want to end here for everyone listening is, so Mike Chandler had this quote that I loved that I want to leave you guys with, my friends. And it's, I don't want to just be a great fighter, but also be a great man. And I think you can become a great man by first being a great fighter. I think this is something to ruminate on and to think about. Can all of us learn a little bit more about how to take a punch to the face and the consequences of running our mouth from people who know how to punch faces? So thanks for being here. Thanks for being you, a builder in a world of consumers, a doer. I see you, and I think you are a big deal. See you next time.
You know that I got it, no need to look all in a bag. Stunting like this cause I work so hard, I'm the best, I only speak facts. If I say that I have it, you know that I got it, no need to look all in a bag.
Sometimes a mistake I see entrepreneurs make is you say, so what's your business? What do you do? And they give you the most complicated answer I've ever heard in a million years.
Yeah.
And you see people like, okay, cool. They're not contemptuous of you. They don't understand. And they're contemptuous of that.
Right.
So if you're introducing yourself, you're explaining something, you're like, gosh, Vanessa, I'm seeing this contempt everywhere. You are overcomplicating it. You need to go for clarity over confusion. People should be able to very quickly understand what you do and who you are and what you want from them.
So obviously I love creating content. We post like 50 pieces of it across all my platforms. And if you've ever created content, you know the uphill battle it can be to ideate, write, produce, film, video, and then you have to edit it all. So one of my favorite tools to use for this is Riverside. You've probably heard about it before, but I don't think people realize that it's revolutionized the podcast space by allowing creators all over the world to do the recording in 4K, regardless of internet speed. But they've just released an update that I think any creator is gonna love. So along with the high quality video and audio that they've kind of become known for, you can have editing software so you can edit any video content directly in Riverside. If your team's a little bit more bougie like mine and wants to record the video themselves, and then you can upload it to Riverside so you can use their amazing AI tools afterwards. It can transcribe your video, add customizable caption, analyze that transcript to cut out any dead space in the video. And my favorite part, they have this AI editor feature that will pull short form from clips from my content so we can squeeze all the juice of it out from the many hours it takes to create it. If you think time is money like I do, then Riverside has given me and my team back lots of time, aka money. So I love these guys. And because I love you, I got you guys a deal.
So try Riverside for yourself with the link in this episode's description. You can sign up for free using the link and discount code Cody at checkout for a discount on any paid plan. Welcome back to the Big Deal Podcast. I'm Codie Sanchez, and this podcast is for those of you who don't just want to be rich, but free and are willing to do what it takes to get there. Okay, this week we have on somebody that I go to every time I am struggling with how do I communicate with somebody, with why isn't my team doing what I want it to do, with why can't I get my husband to do what I want him to do. And her name is Vanessa Van Edwards. You guys might know her because she has one of the most popular TED Talks of all time on communication and the cues we give with our body that tell people things without us even moving our mouth. She runs something called Science of People, which is a large psychology-based business on how can we use behavioral cues in order for us to get what we want out of life, to live better lives, to be more successful. She also is a best-selling author ×2, frequently on Good Morning America, CNBC, MSNBC. You guys are kind of in for a treat because she has only done 2 podcasts this year, Mel Robbins and now mine. What I love about Vanessa is she talks about things that are applicable to our everyday lives that we can take away and take real action on, but all backed by science. And so she is like a walking encyclopedia of studies and experiments that you can then take and apply to your business. So in this episode today, we go over how do you pitch somebody something so that they will buy it. We talk about how in your business do you communicate in meetings that is probably making people not like you and you to be less successful. We talk about how to communicate with members of the opposite sex to actually figure out if they're into you or going to be into you and vice versa. We also talk about how do you run a business or be successful in business if you're an introvert or if you don't really like people. And one of my favorite ones, how do you tell people no but get them to thank you? So I think you guys are really going to like this episode. Let's dive right in to a story that kind of blew my mind when Vanessa started. We got to start with one of my favorite stories. Shark Tank, Ring, I'll say no more.
Okay. Ring, billion-dollar company now, was a great idea. Video doorbell. Okay, Jamie Siminoff has this idea. He has lots of growth, lots of traction. He goes on Shark Tank. You think, no-brainer. He enters the tank. He does a pitch. Not a good one. But does a pitch, shows revenue numbers, has really promising numbers, and he doesn't get a deal. Months later, he gets an investment from Shaq, Richard Branson, but he failed in Shark Tank. And it is the perfect example, and it was sobering for me. This was back in 2012, 2013, where he had a great idea, literally $1 million idea, but he didn't know how to pitch it, and it failed. And that is the problem, is I think a lot of business owners have amazing ideas. Doesn't matter how good your idea is, if you don't know how to pitch it, it will not sell.
Let's watch a second of this clip.
Who's there? It's Jamie. Here to pitch? Who? It's Jamie.
Come in.
Sharks. Wouldn't it have been nice to know who was behind the door before you let me in? With my product, you can.
What do you take away from this? What are the learning lessons so that we can only be the Ring founder after he became a billionaire, not during Shark Tank?
Yes. Okay, so here's a big mistake that people make when they're pitching on stage, pitching on a video call, pitching to an investor, is they prep their pitch and not their first impression. But people decide how smart you are, how trustworthy you are, and if they're gonna like your idea when they first see you. That is even before your opening line. And so what I learned in that was that his first impression was one of the worst first impressions I've ever seen. So what he did is he was trying to be clever. Is he came in and he knocked on the door of the Shark Tank. And they said, "Who's there?" And he said, "It's Jamie, here to pitch an idea." And he asked his own name. In that moment, I think he lost the deal. The reason for this is because an accidental question inflection, when you accidentally ask your name or your number or your statement, people question you. And so I think in his opening line, and this is a mistake people make all the time, is they ask their name or they ask their number, and you're begging people to negotiate with you. I do tons of sales trainings, right? And here's what I hear all the time. "We'd love to have your business, we'd love to work with you, and the price of that will be $5,000. You ask your number, you're telling people, I don't really believe this number, and neither should you. Those people have the lowest close rates, the biggest pushback, and also people lack confidence in you. So I think that the first impressions was the really big one there, is it's before you even open your mouth or your very first line is actually gonna set you up for an entire pitch.
Fascinating. So what should it sound like?
Okay, so instead you want to use what's called the downward inflection. And you want to do this, it's much more authoritative, is when we're speaking as humans. Well, can I share a really good study? Just like a juicy study. Okay, so most people, when they think about how to pitch, they think about the words they use, maybe what they're wearing or their body language. But actually, our vocal power is a secret way that we can show confidence. And here's the study. They brought doctors into their recording studio, and they had them record 10-second voice tone clips, like this. Hi, my name is Dr. Edwards. I specialize in oncology, and I work at Children's Presbyterian Hospital. They took these clips and they warbled the words. So you could hear the pitch, the volume, the pace, the cadence, but not the actual words being said. Then they asked participants to listen to these clips, and the gobbledygook sounded like, I worked really hard on practicing.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. Yeah. Yes, thank you. So they listened to this and they said, how smart is this person? Do you like this person? The doctors who had the lowest ratings in warmth and competence had the highest rate of malpractice lawsuits.
Whoa.
Which means that when you first say, hey, my name is Vanessa, how you say that is, right then people are deciding how smart and how trustworthy you are. And so when we're talking about vocal power, the biggest mistake that doctors made is they asked their names. They said, hi, my name is Dr. Edwards. I specialize in oncology. I work at Children's Presbyterian Hospital. What would have been better is going on the downward inflection. So that sounds like this. Hi, my name is Dr. Edwards. I specialize in oncology. I work at Children's Presbyterian Hospital.
Oh yeah, I believe
you. Oh my gosh, right?
Yes.
Like even I would hire me, and I'm not a doctor. You know, someone who was really good at this, Barack Obama. Barack Obama. There is a cadence he has to his voice, and I do terrible impressions. I will try it for you, but I do terrible impressions. He used to go down, or he still goes down at the end of his sentences, which makes you sit up and listen. So this is my really bad Barack Obama impression, okay? Right, here it goes. I'm gonna talk about nothing. In our country today, we really have to work on something serious. If we don't work on this problem, we are going to have a major challenge. Right? Like he's slinging his words down at you. And as humans, we think, whoa, if he's going that low and he's telling us what to do, it better be real.
Interesting.
And so it almost doesn't even matter what the content is, but we hear that vocal tone. So when you're practicing your pitches, practice stating your name, practice stating your numbers, and whatever question makes you nervous, like when an investor's like, so what's the competition in the market? Do not ask, tell.
Fascinating. Do you use this also in interpersonal relations, not just pitches? Like what is
Constantly.
What other scenarios would you use this in? Is this how you communicate with your team and also how you communicate with your husband?
Yeah, so luckily I think about all these cues as a science. And they are happening all the time. I think there are about 96 cues that people choose from. Like they actually can pick these out and use them in interpersonal relationships. And it happens down to asking your husband where he wants to go to dinner. It comes down to telling your kids what you want them to do. I notice that parents who have kids who don't listen as much are asking what they want them to do instead of saying what they want them to do. So,
gosh, you're right.
So this is an assertiveness issue, right? When we talk about assertiveness in the workplace, at home, in interpersonal relationships, if you state your needs, people are much more likely to listen to them. And so it is happening all the time. But it's not just vocal power, right? It's also how we carry ourselves, the kinds of words we use. In fact, the kinds of words we use change how people treat us. For example, there was a study, I love this study. They wanted to know if a single word could change the way people acted. They brought them into the lab, split them into two groups. One group was told, today you're going to play the Wall Street game. The second group was told, today you're going to play the community game. The trick was the games were the same. They wanted to know if that one single word switch would change how they interacted. Everyone who was told they were playing the Wall Street game shared an average of 1/3 of their profits. People who were told they were playing the community game shared 2/3 of their profits. That means that when we hear words like community, we are primed to actually act more collaboratively, to actually act more communally. When we are primed to act in a competitive way, like Wall Street, we actually are less generous, but more competitive. So the words you're using with your kids, with your spouses, with your friends, on your team, they are changing things. The biggest mistake I see is bosses send out meeting, video call, one-on-one. What a missed opportunity. If you are doing that, you are blending in. I open my calendar multiple times a day. Call it what you want them to do in that meeting. You want a strategic meeting? Call it strategic goal-setting meeting. Collaboration team session. Accountability call. That way, every single time someone opens their calendar, they're literally being primed on how they should act and behave in that moment.
That's such good advice. I'm totally going to steal that.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting because I was at an event the other day. Well, I was actually at church. And and what I thought was fascinating is I went to 2 different churches over the course of 2 weeks because we're looking for a church here in Austin that I want to be a part of. You saw in the group text. And one of the ones I went to blew me away because of their priming. So they opened it up and they talked about how at this church, they were a community, so they used that word, one. Then they said, and at this community, the job is not for the church and the book to serve you. It is for you to serve the book and the church.
Yes.
That in fact, if you want to become a better person, and if you want to achieve more of your goals and what you want out of life, that means you have to give first. And so it was funny because I was listening to it. I was like, God, these chairs are sort of uncomfortable. You know, I was like, gosh, yeah, I'm like the lighting, this could be like a better setup. I'm critiquing what's happening in church, which is totally not normal. And, but as I'm doing that, and he says, if there is something that you want differently, if there is something that you think should change, who should be the person to change it? If not you, then who? Who should be the person to change it? And everyone is like, me. And I was like, oh, that's so good. Because what does that do? The second you in your event, in your company, then feel like there's something that needs to change, your employees will feel like they're the ones that can actually help you make the change.
And that was a purposeful introduction. They thought and they said, what purpose are we going to give everyone? Because we are infectious, right? We are emotionally contagious as humans. And so you have to think, if I'm emotionally contagious, what contagion do I want to spread? Do I want to spread influence, power, persuasion, kindness, wealth, happiness? What are those things? You have to be purposeful. They were planning on what those words were going to be when they first got there. Same thing as your team meetings. What is the one word goal?
Yeah.
Is it collaboration or is it get it done? Right? When you are starting a team call, here's my least favorite thing. People get on a team call and they go, well, we'll get started in a few. We'll let everyone log in. No, that is a wasted opportunity, and it means you're not being purposeful. No, your meetings start the moment you come on, if you're a boss, and they start with your intention for the meeting. All right, everyone, today we're going to do a big review, and I want to get really clear on some goals. But first, I want to start with tell me something good. Every team call I do, everyone on the team, because we're all remote, 2 of us are in Austin, we say, share something good. Because I noticed that we were starting accidentally on the negative. I think this is also, if you're a leader, we can do good by being good communicators. And so if you are starting your team calls with, oh, the traffic, the numbers, the problems, so stressed, so busy, so hectic, what a scarcity mindset that is, and you are contagious. You say you're stressed, you just infected your whole team with stress, because moods usually go from the top down. So I would rather you be positively contagious. That sets up such a good culture. It sets up such good loyalty. So I noticed my team calls were like negative, like accidentally so. So I was like, no, we are changing this. So everyone shares something good. You know what my team member told me? She said, every Tuesday we have our team call. And on Monday, I do more good things.
So that you have.
So she has something to share on Tuesdays. And so I think that part of this is about being more charismatic and having more influence and pitching your ideas. But part of it is also, let's spread more good. Like, let's be positively contagious. And that means being purposeful. That means no more accidental openers. Sorry, I'm late. It's been so busy. Never ask someone.
Explain what an accidental opener is, because that is a beautiful line. I think doing an accidental opener is the worst way for a leader to lead.
Yes. Okay, accidental openers happen when you have whatever is the top of your mind and it comes out of your mouth and you've just changed the nature of the entire communication or interaction, right? So this is the question that, can we please go on a diet? No more. Been busy? Is it your busy season? Oh man, was that bad thing that happened last month still happening? Right? You are literally juicing bad. Right? So I like purposeful openers, right? So is create a norm in your team where you're adding a purposeful open that people can prepare for that also respects your introverts. So I love my extroverted leaders, but extroverted leaders sometimes can actually turn off employees and lose them if they push them out of their introvert boundaries. So if you're like, we're going to do a new icebreaker every single week, for an introvert, they're like, please, no. Right? So you have a norm on the team that we talk about something good, or we share something we've learned, or we do a goal review. Okay. Next is in your interpersonal relationships is level up by asking better questions. You want to literally juice dopamine. Look, dopamine does a lot of things in our body. I will not overcomplicate it, but it is the chemical of motivation. When someone has dopamine coursing through their bodies, they are motivated to talk, open up, say yes, invest, do new things, say new things. It's the chemical of excitement. We can juice it with our questions. And an accidental opener misses dopamine opportunities. So here's my favorite dopamine opener. Working on anything exciting these days?
Yeah.
Please stop asking people what they do. I think when you ask someone, what do you do? First of all, it's a social script. You just told their brain, go on autopilot. I'm going to ask the same boring questions as I always ask. And second, if someone is not defined by what they do, they are answering on autopilot, and then they have no dopamine at all, right? Their brain is off. They're thinking about their to-do list. If you ask someone, working on anything exciting these days, you are giving them such a beautiful contagion, which is they get to think through their head, exciting, 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 exciting. That is literally juicing dopamine from excitement in their own life. And it gives them permission to tell you what they want to tell you.
It's really good. Yeah, in a perfect world, too, then you never have somebody say, oh, I'm just a mom right now.
That's it.
I'm just, which is also one of my pet peeves. I'm like, gosh, but that is my fault that I opened up the question in a way that made them go automatically to a just answer.
I think it's our fault.
Yeah.
I think we're in charge of how people treat us. You cue people to how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
And that's with the kinds of questions you ask, the kinds of words you use, how you're holding your body language, and how you're using your voice.
Yeah.
So if you want to be treated with more respect, more likability, you got to spread it.
Let's talk about that. If you want to be treated with more respect, what do you do from a body language perspective?
Okay, so respect is a good one. So research has shown that 82% of our impressions of people are based on two traits: warmth and competence. It's not how attractive you are, it's not how tall you are, it's not how rich you are, it's not how successful you are. It's literally how fast can you signal, I'm a friend, trust, and you can rely on me, competence. And so from a body language perspective, the faster you can signal those two things, the moment you hop on screen, the moment you get on a video, the moment you enter a room, the more people like you and respect you.
Interesting.
And so it is a balance. So what I like to think about is like a recipe. Is there are warmth nonverbal cues and there are competent nonverbal cues. So warm cues, these make sense, right? Smiling, authentic smiling, a warm cue. You're nodding. Nodding is a warmth cue, right? When you do a triple nod, research shows that I will speak 67% longer. Wow. So when you're
just going, oh, I got to
but-
start adding all
but
of
not
that.
bobbleheading.
Which is this?
No.
Oh, right.
Right.
Too much.
Well, also that's also not good, right?
Well, it's your
It's
Indian.
too much. So if you do a slow triple nod, here I'll demo it for you.
Okay.
The other person speaks 67% longer. So this is a
Stop. Okay.
right? That is a nonverbal ... You're telling the other person, I hear you, I see you, tell me more. Now, the pace of this is also important. So you only want to do 3 and pause. And you want to do them slowly. So slow is engaged and curious. Tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. Fast is impatience.
Ooh, yeah.
So a little secret here is if you want someone to like wrap it up or speed it up, not that you ever would, you can go, It's literally a signal for them to stop talking. So warmth cues, smiling, nodding, a head tilt. So watch the difference between a still face and a head tilt. So if I were to say, I have some news, a head tilt immediately softens you. It immediately adds more warmth. That's a small warmth cue. Competence cues, there's like 15 of them, but those are the easy ones. The competence cues, some of my favorites are like a steeple, right? So even this is just more wise and competent if it feels natural to you. Like some people look like don't be Mr. Burns, you know, right? So like you gotta kind of be careful. This is on my book cover and you love it, I know.
I do love your book cover.
Right? But I'm not, so you have to be careful with this one, but that's a high competence
No, but
cue.
because your book cover, you've got the crossed legs, so it's like you're dainty, but you're also smart.
Dainty.
Yeah, because
Warmth.
you cross your ankles.
Warm,
I feel
yeah.
like I always think dainty.
Warm.
when I think
Dainty, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Take it.
It's a great book, by the way. The book's name is Cues, to
Thank
give you a
you, thank
little
you.
plug.
Yes,
but
so-
all of this is in there.
So the cover is literally a perfect balance of warmth and competence, as are most of my social media posts. So if you look at my Instagram grid, it's warm, competent, warm, competent. Maybe it'll be warm, warm, competent, competent. We'll have a study post, and then a post of me being silly. And then a funny meme, and then a really hard-hitting study. So even in your business, like, can I give a business example?
Please.
Okay, so Casper Mattresses is an interesting one. Like, they kind of took the mattress market by storm. And they could have had better mattresses, sure, but their marketing was a perfect blend of warmth and competence. On their webpage, they would have like kids bouncing on clouds. And they would have our research scientists in the Casper lab, and it was a whole science section. And they would have like a quote from Vogue about like the best night's sleep ever. And then they would have someone in a lab coat, like testing a mattress.
Right.
It literally, you could count the warmth and competence, and that for a human, when they are looking for trust, reliability is immediately helpful. We can do the same thing with our words. So, for example, I love to guess someone's warmth and competence based on their email sent folder. So a challenge for you is...
Oh, no.
Oh, no. All right, we're going to look at Codie's email sent folder. So you can go into their email sent folder, and I count up the warm words and the competent words. Warm words are words that trigger oxytocin, that makes us feel collaborative. So they're words like best, both, happy, together, cheers, collaborate, team. Words that are competent make us want to get it done. They're words like motivation, efficient, power through, goal, mastery, achieve. So I can tell you how your team rates you on warmth and competence based on your email sent folder. Emojis are warm. Exclamation points are warm. Data, charts, graphs, numbers are competent. And so when you're writing important emails, not all the emails, there should be a blend of both warmth and competence. Your LinkedIn profile should be a blend of warmth and competence. Your landing pages should be a blend of warmth and competence.
I think I over-index on the competence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I think it's really interesting because you talked from a social perspective. We've noticed that lately too, that I am so high on the indexing for competence, or what Chris Voss would call assertive too, that when people meet me to interview me, I had two, well, actually I think Chloe said it to me. She met me and she was like, gosh, you're really nice and warm and kind. And I was like, yes. But
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a common thing that because my content is very serious.
Yes. The same thing I was told, you're so much nicer than you look.
Yeah. I get that too.
Why do you think I wear pink?
It's actually very smart.
You have to balance. And so this is what's really important is Oprah Winfrey is a good example of this. So Oprah Winfrey has a very, very high balance of warmth and competence. And we like people who have high of both, right? But she's as a dial, right? It's like a thermostat. Right? Like we like it between 68 and 72. I don't want you to dial all the way, but like when Oprah Winfrey is with like a victim, she is crying with them, she is touching them, she's leaning in. Those are all warmth cues. When she's with like a political commentator, she changes. Her cues are much more competent. She's quieter. She's less facially expressive. She makes more eye contact. She's still with her body. She has less gestures. Those are all competent gestures. So you can also dial, and this is what I think the most advanced leaders do. And Jamie Siminoff learned to do this, going back to Ring. He learned to do this. I think that was a bad pitch in Shark Tank, which, by the way, it's not obviously bad. Like if you were to go watch the pitch, you would be like, I don't know what happened, but something happened.
Yeah.
I think he learned how to pitch with both warmth and competence, as anyone can. Look at your slide deck, right? In your slide deck, it should not be all numbers and competence. In fact, the research says, and this is a quote, competence without warmth leaves people feeling suspicious. People will be suspicious of your ideas and your numbers if you do not know how to add warmth cues. And that is what you are struggling with, is you know instinctively, if I come across as too hard or too competent, people are suspicious of me, and they are. And that is because we have to have a balance of both.
Yeah, it goes to trustworthiness. Yeah, a lot of our presentations, we use memes because memes are an easy way to transfer somebody else's warmth to you.
Exactly
right.
right.
I'm not the greatest joke teller of all time.
You're good, you're funny.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. But then when I can add somebody else's meme in there, then it softens up sort of the hard blows of business that are realities.
Okay, like let's get practical, right?
Yeah.
So like in your presentation, I like to switch a warmth something into your presentation like every 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So this is very practical. So competence in a presentation, data, charts, graphs, research, science, study. Warmth, memes, gifs, demos, fuzzy wuzzy social proof, personal stories.
Quotes.
Good.
I love
quotes. Yes.
Because they make you feel something immediately and you don't have to come up with it.
And it's warm.
Right.
So if you can take that list and you can just make it so that they're even, your presentations will be so much stronger. Same thing on your social media, same thing in your promos, same thing in your ads.
Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, I always wondered, one of the fun things I like to do is go into Facebook ad library, and you can
in my spare time.
Okay.
So you can go into Facebook Library and you can see all the ads that somebody's running.
Okay.
Of any business.
Okay, what? Okay,
And
cool.
so if you want to try to understand the psychology of selling of any
Yes.
business,
Yes.
it's really easy to see in Facebook. And if the ads have been running for a long period of time, you know that the ad has been working. So if you look at the brand new ads, I don't know, maybe they work, maybe they don't, but if they've been running for a few months, okay, this ad is working.
Yes.
And then I like to go into the ad and see, well, why is it working? And oftentimes it's not what you expect. It's like, oh, this had something catchy in it, and it was some sort of warmth and entertainment, and then finally it got to the content. It got to the close.
So this is the curse of smart people. This is why we have so many failed entrepreneurs and failed businesses, is because they're super smart. And that is actually a problem in communication. Super smart people have great ideas. They have data to back it up. They have the whole plan. But if you do not know how to pitch your idea or package your idea with warmth, people will not believe it. And so smart people rely very heavily on, oh, I'm going to put an ad and say, 50% returns or 20% cheaper than the competitor. But people don't buy from just competence alone. They have to trust you first.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Speaking of trust, it also reminds me that as the bigger you get, the bigger the target that you have. And, we love David until he becomes Goliath. And one thing that we've talked about before that I thought was genius is thinking about how somebody like Taylor Swift stays so high on the warmth scale when she is a billionaire, she is highly competent.
Gorgeous.
And she gets, her tickets are 5x more expensive than anybody else, and yet people love her. Can you talk a little bit about what you see in T Swift?
So you're so generous, because actually I was totally making fun of T Swift. Okay, I love her, but I was making fun of her because she does a specific nonverbal cue that just kills me. Because it is, here's what it is. Whenever she walks into a room, you watch her documentary, half of the documentary is her doing what I call the humble cue, which is this.
It's true.
And so she's in a stadium, a sold out stadium with 50,000 people. And she's like, how did you all get here? Oh my gosh, for me? We love it.
We love it.
We love it because she's so successful. She so knows her stuff, but look at how humble she is. Right? This is why these documentaries are working. This is why so many people are doing them, is because what do you see? It's like, oh, he's so successful, he's on stage, but then you see him making his own coffee.
Yeah.
Oh, he makes his own coffee. Oh, he spills a little. Oh, there's studies on this where Dr. Richard Wiseman had a model try to sell a blender in a mall. Okay? A blender. And he did 2 trials of this experiment. One where she did a demo of the blender. Hi, good morning, folks. We're going to demo this blender for you. Strawberry, banana. Here's the blender, smoothies for all. Okay? A perfect presentation. Then she had the second version of this, same words, same smoothie, same everything, but she spills the smoothie. Hi, everyone. So happy to sell you this blender. Strawberry, banana. Oh, no. Here's that smoothie for you. So sorry. The blender, when she made the mistake, she sold so many more of that blender when she made the mistake, because I think people were real, vulnerable. It's okay. And so when I talk about warmth, it's also vulnerability. It's also admitting the problem or the mistake or making a mistake or not having a perfect pitch, which for smart people, they are allergic to. Okay?
Yeah, it's true.
Allergic to it.
I have so much respect for Mel Robbins.
Yes.
Because she's so good at showing her vulnerabilities and being honest about some of the stuff that's going on in the world.
Yes.
And I think that people see that and go, okay, if she's willing to share that.
She must be real. Can
She
I
must
tell
be
you how
real.
she does it also? So she
Yes.
does it verbally, but here's a nonverbal cue that Mel uses, and I should make fun of Mel for this. She's the only other interview I did this year other than you. So this is her nonverbal cue. Ready? Guys, can I just tell you this one tip? She self-touches her face.
Yeah.
Probably just totally messed up
No,
everything.
you look great.
So the
Why does
nonverbal,
that matter?
Okay, so self-touching your face is a cue of anxiety or nervousness. It is also a vulnerability. So you will notice that I think Mel Robbins touches her face far more than any other influencer, and you know what? We love it. We love it because we know instinctively. I think Cornell found that there were 4 behaviors, nonverbal behaviors, that trigger untrustworthiness, make you not want to trust a person. Touching the face or the hair is one of them. Touching the stomach. Rubbing your arms, and I believe lack of eye contact. They just signal distrust. So when Mel gets on video and she self-touches, it immediately makes you think, oh, is she nervous? Oh, me too.
Wait, but how does that work? So this usually makes you not like somebody or not trust somebody.
I said signals untrustworthiness because we think they're nervous. But if she's giving us really competent advice, we're like, oh, she's nervous, but she's giving us good advice.
Interesting.
I want to be very clear. All these cues do not have to do with your actual trust.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're talking about perceptions of trust and competence, which are just as important as your actual trust and competence. And that's what I think a lot of smart people get wrong. Is they think, I have the best system, I have the best business, and I'm trustworthy. Of course people will buy. And then they're shocked why no one buys, or they don't understand why their sales teams cannot close. It is because I listen in on these sales calls, and I can tell you down to the cue why they are not closing. And it is because they can have the best pitch in the world, the best script, but if they are giving away their competence, people will not believe them.
Interesting. Yeah, and I think often when people try to sell in business, they try to maybe promise what they actually can deliver, which is like a good night's sleep, Casper mattress. And people go, that's too hard. There's no way you could possibly deliver that to me. And so they almost oversell the thing that they actually do, but they'd be better off saying,
A pretty good night's sleep.
yeah, a little bit better than your last night's sleep mattress. And people go, actually, that's probably doable. And I think that's a great point in marketing and sales too.
I think that their tagline was something like reliable prices with science-backed engineering. Like even their tagline was the perfect blend of warmth and competence words. And they were very honest with like, here are how our engineers have tested this mattress. And so you could kind of see the process. So another way you can add warmth is you can show behind the scenes. Like I think that like when you're showing behind the scenes, people are like, oh, she's real.
Totally.
And so like that's the other way, the other element you can add there is like real behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, I don't think enough people, we talk about this a lot here too, which is document, don't create. And it's really hard to do actually because you're in it, you're working. But if you can actually document, okay, we're going to save a business today. Okay, we just closed on a deal right here. Then people actually can see you doing it in a world with the lowest trust levels since before the age of the internet. It's necessary. So it's smart. Now I want to talk a little bit about I think a lot of times in first interactions, we're scared. We're scared to pitch. We're scared for an interview. We're scared to sell. Can you hide fear? Does it matter? Can other people feel that?
You're not going to like this answer very much, but our emotions are contagious. And so if you're afraid, people will pick up on it. So there's a study that changed the way that I think about this, which is they brought people into their lab and they split them up into two different groups. One group, they wore sweatsuits and ran on a treadmill. So that they got sweat into the suit and they collected the sweat. The second group, they said, you're going to skydive for the first time. Put them in sweatsuits and push them out of a plane. They took the two samples of sweat. This is where it gets kind of gross. They asked unsuspecting participants to smell both of the sweat. They had no idea what they were smelling in an fMRI machine. Everyone who smelled the fear sweat, the skydiving sweat, caught the fear. They had no idea what they were smelling, but their amygdala lit up where they were afraid. What this shows us is that when you are afraid, you are sending off all kinds of signals that you don't even realize. Not only your face, not only your voice, but also even your chemical physiology. And so this is why I think it's really critically important for my introverted entrepreneurs, my introverted business owners, is you got to get yourself right before you walk into a room. And you got to know your stuff, right? Like no one can fake warmth and competence. I can give you the cues to help, but if you are truly afraid that you don't know your numbers or you don't know your stuff, people are going to pick up on it. That I think is the definition of inauthenticity, right? Is like you're faking a number or you're faking warmth with someone. Now, I will say that I think that we can convert our fear into different kinds of social energy. So it's very important for people to understand, are you an introvert, ambivert, or extrovert? Most people think of just introvert and extrovert. There's actually a third category, and most people are ambiverts. And you have to be very precise about what causes you fear or drains your battery and what gives you energy. For example, I am an ambivert. I can kind of switch between the two. I know who gives me energy. Like I leave being like, yes. Like when we hang out with our group of girlfriends, I feel energized after. I don't feel drained. Whereas I have certain people where I'm like in a coma afterwards, right?
We've all felt that.
Right. So you got to know who are the people, what are the places, Who are the teammates or the tasks that drain you the fastest? And then you should divide your energy like a social battery. That helps conquer the fear, because being a little bit afraid because you're nervous is not a bad thing, but being drained and afraid, that's a deal breaker.
That's a great point. So basically you could, even if you're scared, you could at least be prepared to be scared.
Exactly. And you can know, okay, I'm bringing my favorite team member, I'm bringing my favorite wing woman. I love my deck. I just redesigned my slides. It's gorgeous. I have warmth and competence. That's going to make me feel good. So even though you're a little bit afraid pitching out there, you know your stuff. You know your deck. You have your wing woman, and you're doing it at an ideal time for you, right? Like you can we can game our energy in that way, and that's really important on teams as well. Like you should know your team members, who's introverted and who's extroverted on your team, who's ambiverted on your team. Your introverts, never put them on the spot for collaboration. That's an insult to them, right? If you want them to collaborate or share their idea, send them an email ahead of time and say, hey, tomorrow we're doing a strategy session. I'm gonna be talking about some big ideas for X in the fall. I would love your ideas on how we can do things differently.
Interesting.
That gives them 24 hours to prepare for it, as opposed to in the room, they're going to trigger fear, right? You're going to say, what are your ideas on X for the fall? And they're going to be like, huh. Not because they're not smart, but because they're in a situation that makes them feel uncomfortable.
What personality tests do you use for your team in order to tell who is what? Okay,
So I highly recommend, if you're going to hire, do behavioral interviewing. So that's less like skill and strength based, and that's more behavior based. And my favorite practice for hiring is doing alphabet work. So this is basically figuring out what is your ABCD work and what is their ABCD work. Very simply, this is your A work is work that you are better at than most people. Like, what are you better at than most people? Where do you hit flow? What are you most productive in? A work, tasks and communication. B work is the trick. B work is what trips up my smart people. B work you're pretty good at, but you're not great at it. You're not better than everyone at it. And you can get away with it, but you kind of dread it. C work, you're average. You do it just like everyone else. It kind of clunky, it kind of takes you a while, and you can get by. D work is work you are terrible at. You're worse than most people, and it's going to look terrible. The mistake that people make when they hire is they hire people who have their A work, and then they hire the person, and then you both want the A work. You are better off hiring someone who is opposite to you. Their D work is your A work is their D work. Or if you really, really want to be efficient, hire someone who's you can give away your B work to. B work, I think, slows most people down. We were talking about this earlier, is if you can give away your B work to give more time for A work, you're so much more efficient. And so you want to think very strategically about what's the behavior of how people are thinking.
Yeah, that's really good. You know, in that vein, I think a lot of times in our businesses, it's not just, are they competent and can this person come in and do the task?
Yes,
which
not
would
skill-based, that's
be A,
skill-based.
B, C, or D. But it's also, who are they as a human? And I think I think about this in a way like, you know, what is better to have in your business with as a coworker? Is it better to have a toxic coworker, or is it better to have sort of a fake coworker that you're a little ambivalent with? Like, what's the difference between the two?
Okay, I have a very strong opinion on this, which is I prefer a toxic coworker to a frenemy. I prefer a toxic worker to a fake friend. Here's why. When we know someone is toxic or difficult, we are very clear in our head. We don't go to lunch with them. We don't need to catch up on the weekend. We know their strength and their skills, and that's what we go to them for. And then we create parameters around their difficulty. When you're fake with someone or you're ambivalent, and I call this like a fake friend, when you're like, do I like them?
Yeah.
Are they doing a good job? Do they like me? Right? Like, this is people, it's also with friends who you're like, was that a neg? Like, was that passive aggressive? Or are they actually supporting me? That actually drains you far faster than a toxic person. There's a study about this. So they did it with police officers, and they categorized everyone's relationships in this precinct. And they found that the officers who had more ambivalent relationships, like relationships with the coworkers where they were like, do I want to go to lunch with them, or would I rather eat a sandwich alone? The more ambivalent relationships they had, the worse their happiness was, the more sick days they took, the lower their workplace satisfaction. Actually, police officers who had more toxic coworkers were totally okay because they knew that's not my person.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of this, especially as adults, is like, who are my people? Great, that's my person, and that's my person, and that's not my person, and that's not my person. When you are very clear on that, that actually helps you streamline your social energy. If you are not sure if someone likes you, if you are not sure that someone's not doing a good job, it's time to make a change.
That's so interesting. Have you ever thought that it wasn't working with somebody, or that they weren't the right person, made a decision, made a change, let them go, moved on, and regretted it?
No.
I know, me neither. Isn't that crazy? It's actually fascinating because I've asked every leader every time that question.
No.
Never have I had a leader
Never.
go, dang it, I wish I hadn't let that person go.
Never.
Dang it, I wish I still hung out with that person.
Same with friends.
Why do we wait so long and like beat ourselves up so much about it?
Because we're human.
If that's the answer.
I mean, we're human. We feel bad, you
Yeah.
know, and also like we're hopeful.
Yeah.
Right. Like I am fundamentally a believer in the good of human beings, and so we really want to make it work. Like we really try, and we hope that they're going to change or we're going to change. But you know what? You're doing them a disservice.
Yeah, I've realized the exact same thing. And often you don't need to have a God complex. If it's not working out for them with you, they are probably perfectly suited for something else and somebody else, and you're holding them back by keeping them with you.
That's how I feel.
We just did something really cool. If you've ever thought about buying a business or want to understand what the word seller financing means, you've got to try this. So basically you fill out this application right here, and we sort every single human who comes through this list to the right tool and resource for them when it comes to buying a business, when it comes to finding financing for buying a business, and when it comes to building a business. So you get directed to our member of experience or one of our members of experience, and they find the right tools and resources for you. Some of this stuff is just free. Like, oh, hey, you don't understand seller financing? Here's an article for you. Some of it is, wow, you really are ready for the 303 level. You should do the workshop. Some of it is like, you know what? Start here with our first little entry guide. I want to make sure that I get every single human only what they need when they need it to become an owner. You might like this. Hit the link in the description below, and we will sort you to figure out what kind of business buyer are you. So let's say you are hiring and you want to figure out if somebody's lying to you or not. How do you do that?
Okay, my favorite topic. So I love lie detection research. In fact, we've done a lot of research in our lab on, we've had people submit videos of themselves lying. We have a whole process for doing it. And then we analyze them for cues, looking for patterns. And there is no Pinocchio's nose. There's no one cue that says someone's lying, but there are statistical cues to deceit. There are cues that we saw over and over again in the lying answers. So here are a couple of those lie detection cues. So the first, most obvious one is when something's incongruent. So someone says something, but their body shows another. So I'll give you a really good example. One of the challenges we have them do is 2 truths and a lie, where they say 2 truths about themselves and a lie. On the lie, so many people shook their head no.
Whoa.
So if you'll see this, if you're like, so like, what do you think of the new girl? You know, she's great.
Yeah.
So a nod, not in India, Pakistan, and Bulgaria. So that's a cultural note on that one. I try to be careful with my universality, but for nodding, if someone says yes, they should be shaking their head yes or neutral. Right. If someone says no, they should be shaking their head no. And you will often catch a lie when someone is incongruent. When they're like my daughter, I'll be like, did you take an extra cookie? No. Right, and she'll shake her head yes. And I'm like, are you sure? Right, like I know. Another incongruent is people will flash a micro expression that is counter to what they're saying. Like a big one with lying is disgust. Lying makes us feel dirty. We do not like to lie. We know it can get us into trouble. And so oftentimes when people lie, they flash a disgust micro expression. Here's what a disgust micro expression looks like. When we crinkle our nose up and flash the upper whites of our teeth, like this. So you'll see, it's very unnatural if you try it.
It doesn't feel very
You don't do this naturally, but here's what it looks like when someone's lying. So what do you think about the new girl? Yeah, you know, she's great. Yeah. And they're holding that disgust expression, which means not really. Not really. And that's your opportunity. So when you see something incongruent, you say, you know, it's totally fine if like you're not jiving. Like, I know it takes a little bit of time. Do you have any concerns? Usually just one question that clarifies gives them permission to tell you the truth. And so you want to look for incongruent nods. You want to look for incongruent facial expressions, or like the big obvious one is a fake smile when someone says they're happy. This is important for sales and important for hiring, right? So if someone says, yeah, I would be so happy to work here. Right? And their smile is on the bottom half of their face. The only true indicator of a smile is when these upper cheek muscles are activated. So anyone can fake smile, right? I can do this all day long and not actually feel happy. But only 1 in 10 people can consciously activate these muscles up
What
here.
if we get Botox?
Hard.
So you might never
Hard.
be able to tell.
Don't go to California.
Although
watch
I have a lot
out.
of expression right now.
You got a lot of expression.
I'm overdue.
Also, like I don't think you can actually Botox your entire cheek.
No, well, I bet you could.
Well,
but I don't
maybe
think
not.
you should.
Any activation up here is good. It's a good indicator of happiness. Because so if someone, this is important, I think, also for like looking for authenticity. So right, if someone's like, yeah, you know, I love your company and I've just been following you for years and I just think this is like a dream job.
Do a real one. Do a real one for me.
I love your company. I think it's so amazing. I've been following you for years.
Yeah. Interesting.
Right? Like that hit my upper cheek muscles. I can consciously activate muscles because I've trained them, but a lot of people cannot. And so you're looking for like, why did she say she was happy, but she wasn't actually happy? Same thing with contempt. So I think this is the most powerful of the micro expressions. It's one of my favorite cues. It's a one-sided mouth raise. So this smirk. First of all, make sure you don't have it in your profile pictures. That is a micro expression of contempt.
Whoa.
So negativity, disdain, scorn. So if you're with someone and you say, you know, the benefits package actually only includes about 7 vacation days, are you okay with that? Yeah, that's fine.
Not okay.
Not fine. Not fine. You're going to get pushback on that. That's going to create resentment. Contempt is a beast of an emotion because it is the seed of disrespect. So Dr. John Gottman, marriage and family counselor, he did a huge research experiment on married couples. He wanted to know if he could predict divorce. He filmed these couples. He did in-depth history of these couples. He followed them for years. He found there was one single indicator of which couple would get divorced. And it was in the initial intake interview, one member of the couple showed contempt towards the other. So I can watch a silent video of a couple and tell you with pretty good accuracy if they're going to get divorced. He can watch a silent video of a couple, and predict with 93.7% accuracy if that couple will get divorced within 30 years. And that is because contempt, when it comes up, it's a better than, it's scorn. If it's not addressed, it festers and it grows. And that's how you get, at the end of a marriage, people can't even look at each other. And so if you have an employee or a friend or a partner who is showing contempt at you or something you say, immediately pause and address it. What can we do here? How are you really feeling about this? Is there anything you want to tell me? That is an opportunity for you to find out what is really going on.
Brilliant. So you notice that somebody in your company has contempt.
Yes.
Because they're doing something like this, they're doing
Smart.
a fake smile.
Fake smile, one-sided mouth raise. Yep.
And then the next thing that you do is you note it, and without going direct at it, you don't say, you look, you say...
You can try that, but not going to go great.
You say what?
Okay, so you have 2 options here, right? So you can just note it as a leader, especially if it's like in a team meeting. You just noted it, right? And also what it's about. Sometimes people show contempt because they had a bad day.
Yeah.
Right? Like maybe you mentioned the weekend and they don't like what they have planned for the weekend. So it's only if it's relevant to something that you can actually do or change. Also, you might not be able to change something and you should just note, okay, they're going to not feel good about that. Then you have the choice of how are you going to pursue. I personally like just information gathering, right? So, hey, I just want to follow up with you on the meeting, either by email or in person, whichever you prefer. How are you feeling about this change? How are you feeling about the update? I just want to check in with you and see how everything's going. Do you have any questions for me? Right? Like that open-ended is step 1. Step 2 is,
what do they usually say at that point? Do they usually...
oh my gosh, usually they're like, oh, thank goodness you asked me because let me tell you, I am not happy about this new rollout and, right? So that's option 1, and almost always that works. The second option is you can try again. So you can be like, you could bring up the option again, just want to go over it, make sure it all makes sense. Sometimes people are contemptuous when they're confused. You get some people who are like, why don't I understand this? They're contemptuous about it. So sometimes just re-explaining it again, you don't see the contempt, good, right? So oftentimes it can even be a clarity issue. Like sometimes a mistake I see entrepreneurs make is you say, so what's your business? What do you do? And they give you the most complicated answer I've ever heard in a million years.
Yeah.
And you see people like, okay, cool. Right? They're not contemptuous of you. They don't understand. And they're contemptuous of that.
Right.
So if you're introducing yourself, you're explaining something, you're like, gosh, Vanessa, I'm seeing this contempt everywhere. You are overcomplicating it. You need to go for clarity over confusion. People should be able to very quickly understand what you do and who you are and what you want from them.
Now I find myself smirking because you've
Don't
done
do
it so
that.
many times.
No, you're mirroring me.
I'm mirroring you.
Okay, so that's a funny thing is also like mirror neurons are absolutely unconscious, and now you probably want to smirk because you can see I'm activating these muscles, right? And you're even doing the same side, which is kind of funny. So that is a very human response. So mirror neurons activate when we see someone make an emotion. This is another reason why emotions are contagious. If you show up and you were excited about your business, excited about whatever you're pitching, that you're showing so many cues of excitement, and then you can't help but smile with me. If you are fake smiling, you are less contagious. Dr. Barbara Wild found this. She showed people 2 pictures, one of people authentically smiling and one of people fake smiling. Everyone who saw the real smile caught it. Their mood got better. Everyone who saw the fake smile, even though they didn't know it was a fake smile, had no behavior change, no mood change. So when we are truly happy, we are literally more infectious. So yes, I think our mirror neurons are a big part of like getting yourself right, and also like love your business, love your people, because it's real hard to fake it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the difference between men and women.
Ooh, okay.
Like, is there a difference in men and women and what you need to do to be attractive and likable?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so there's 2 questions here. So there is big differences between men and women, and that is because men and women send off inherently different cues and different signals. Typically, not always, women have higher voice tones, right? Typically, not always, women use the question and inflection more, and that's cultural, right? A lot of the times, women have been taught, be liked. So they're, as parents, not always, but they're warmth. Whereas boys are taught, get ahead, be respected. So they're often taught competence. So in the research, by the way, this is Dr. Susan Fisk's research from Princeton University. She calls it the stereotype content model, which is that women, by default, are seen as higher in warmth and lower in competence. Men, by default, are seen as higher in competence and lower in warmth. Now I say, great to know. Like, I would rather know that. That is why I dial up my competence in my presentations. When I'm corporate speaking, the name of my business is Science of People, right? Like, that is the most competent name that you could possibly have. Because I know I'm fighting a default that's higher in warmth, but I also use that to my advantage sometimes as well. So it's just important to know that default for you, and then you can purposefully dial up as you wish. You know you have a higher incompetence, and you have to work towards warmth, right? Like, we got to get you some pink. We got to get you some lace, right? We got to work on it.
I'm doing the makeup.
And you're not,
This is a lot.
but that puts us in control.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yes, let's know these biases, because we're then in control of being able to dial up as we wish.
Yeah. How do you see women do it wrong? Because I've seen in the workplace, at least, there was a generation where they had to be tougher, right? They had to show super high levels of competence, otherwise they wouldn't get ahead.
Yes.
And then in my opinion, something went a little sideways there for a while, where because we had to do that for so long, then we kind of overcorrected and we went too hard. And so do you ever see common mistakes women make on the level of moving from warmth to competence?
Yes, and it is 2 words, vocal fry. I don't know why, but there's an epidemic for women more specifically where they'll say a really great idea, but they don't deliver it well because they're a little bit nervous about it, and so they deliver it with a little bit of like vocal fry.
Whoa,
so they
you're right.
change their voice tone, so like it's more like here where you hear that kind of sizzling factor. Well, it's really hard to like believe an idea when it's delivered like this.
It makes me want to cry for some reason. I feel like uncomfortable for you.
Like getting watery.
Like,
It's horrible.
That's awful.
And so I hear this all the time, and I think it's like a fear or a lack of assertiveness. And so that is one of the biggest things that women can do to immediately take back their vocal competence is speak louder. If you have vocal fry and you're like, how do I get rid of this? Just speak a little bit louder. It immediately gets rid of it. That is because the moment you add more breath, it gets vocal fry. Gross is your vocal cords rubbing together like crickets. That's what it is. So the moment you add more breath, it gets rid of it. If you hear someone underserving themselves, like an employee or someone is pitching and they're using vocal fry, say, hey, would you mind speaking up? It will immediately get rid of their vocal fry. Wow. So that's a really big cue that I see, and women don't understand why they're not being taken seriously, or they're being interrupted, or they're being underestimated, or they're being passed over.
Interesting.
And it's because they're accidentally giving it away.
What about men?
Men. It's so hard to make universals with men. No, I know it. This drives me crazy. Men think that to be powerful is to be stoic and unreadable. So recently, especially, I see men who are like, Vanessa, I don't need cues. I have no cues. And they will be these leaders who are They've gotten rid of all facial expressions. They've literally learned to keep their face completely still. They have no movement, no nodding, no head tilting. They literally sit and listen to ideas completely still with no give back. The problem with that is no cues is a cue in itself. We understand muting, like muting, as a problem with charisma. So when you are mute or you under-express, it immediately gets rid of your warmth and your competence. So I see these leaders who have trained themselves to go completely still, typically male, and they're like, why doesn't my team open up to me? Why is everyone quitting? Why can't I close these deals? And I'm like, it's because you are so still-faced, and this is something called the still-face experiment. When you are with someone, and I am completely still-faced and completely still body, it is so physically hard for you to open up to me. Like if you were making no movement and no encouragement and no facial expressions, it would be physically hard for me to talk.
Yep.
And so a mistake that I see men make is they mute and they don't realize that they're losing. It's costing them loyalty.
Oh yeah, I've been.
You've been
in there. Yeah.
You're married to a man.
Captain Stoic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of military men are taught that to survive.
Oh, for sure.
So I have so many amazing vets. We love our vets, and the problem they have is they've gotten rid of all their cues because it was risky for them. And so they used no cues to survive, literally.
Yep.
And now they have to relearn, what cues am I going to pick to do this? One of the first cues I teach men, by the way, if this is you, if you're like, oh man, I totally under emote, like no one can read my face, people are going to tell you you're cold, intimidating, hard to talk to. That's how you know that's you. One of the first cues I'm going to teach you is visible hands. So this works also in the military. So a lot of folks that we have in the military, they'll use this because visible hands is an immediate trust signal. It immediately warms you up, especially in your first impression. The moment you hop on a video call, morning, good to see everyone. That one cue, it wasn't a lot of movement, but it's very easy to do. It's a greeting, it's warmth, right? When you're talking, the more you can have your palms out, palms visible. We love to see a palm. It's an immediate warmth cue.
Interesting.
And it's much easier typically for men than like, howdy, you know, they're not going to do that with their face. So like, you know, even like, let me tell you about an idea that we have coming up. Just that one palm flash. A palm flash is really nice for like, I'm open to your ideas, I'm not concealing anything. It actually goes back to like a very primal part of our brain.
Yeah.
We love to see a palm. We at our lab, I analyzed thousands of hours of TED Talks with my team looking for patterns. And what we found was the difference between the viral TED Talks and the least viral TED Talks were the most viral TED speakers used an average of over 400 hand gestures in 18 minutes. Whereas the least viewed TED Talks used about 270 gestures in 18 minutes. What's happening here? The best TED Talks all start the same way, like this. Today, I want to talk to you about a big idea. We're going to talk about 3 different ways it can change your life. Right?
That is true.
That's like, they're all like that. And it's also the TED Talk voice, right? Like, there is a TED Talk voice. And like, for some reason, like, I can be like, I'm going to say something, and it's going to be so important. And you just know that because of the words that I'm using. And that voice tone tells you that this is something that we have to remember. Because you know what? 30% of people believe that, right? Like, I'm not saying anything, but like, my vocal tone is cueing you. So there's a voice tone for TED, and there's a hand gesture for TED. First of all, the best TED talkers, they greet everyone on stage with an open gesture, right? Big open gestures. And then they typically align their gestures with their words. The most competent, charismatic speakers are explaining their concepts to you with their visual gestures and their words. So if I were to say to you, Codie, I have a really big idea. It's huge. You're like, it's not, Vanessa. I can see how small it is. It's really small. And that is because your brain believes my gesture more than my word. They've actually shown that gestures carry more weight than words because it's hard to lie with our gestures. Like, let's try an experiment. I want you to say 3, but hold up 5. Okay, ready? 3. Horribly hard. Hard
to do.
Hard.
Yeah.
You can try that. It's
I
so
thought
hard.
you gave me a little time. I pictured it in my head, and I could do it.
Your brain does not like lying with gestures.
Interesting.
So very charismatic speakers, they get on TED stage, they have visible gestures. This is for all my stoic men, right? You have a visible gesture, and then you're going to align. So if you have 3 big ideas, just hold 3 big ideas, right? If we have phase 1 and phase 2, we have those 2 phases. It's very easy for you to picture that. Politically, you'll notice that very good political speakers, they are literally outlining their talk for you with their gestures. If they have a really small idea, they're like, this is no big deal. Look how small it is, right? If they're like, this is a big problem, you're like, whoa, it's beach ball big. It's big,
It's huge.
right? Right? If they're like, and you'll notice some people will be like, you know, the other guys over here. And every time they talk about those other guys, they show disgust. and like it's smelly, that hand, and you begin to associate that hand with those bad guys. And then he or she doesn't even have to say about those guys. You just know those horrible guys.
Interesting.
So like that makes it easier for our brains to grok very complicated concepts. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I think that it's important for people to think about both.
How many views did your TED Talk get?
Over 4 million, girl.
Yeah, you were like one of the most viewed TED Talks of all time.
Oh, right? All time. I don't know, all time. But that research got me my TED Talk.
That's wild.
The research on TED and how we're contagious from stage is what got me that.
So one other thing that I want to talk about is, do you feel like we nailed the how you got tricked into a bad hire, the ABCD? I thought we did too. I did it with a different question.
I liked it.
What about the biggest mistakes that people can make in communicating their ideas internally to their company, not just externally? So we talked about how to open up meetings, we talked about how to do pitches, but you and I obsess all day when we're talking about how do we build bigger companies and how do we sell internally, and I don't think a lot of people think about that. So what do bad leaders do, or what mistakes do we make when we communicate internally?
What people don't realize is that your internal marketing to your team is just as important as your external marketing. You've got to get your team on board on an idea. And I think the mistake that people make is they frame ideas or initiatives or phases as like vitamins, as like, this is good for the team. So like a vitamin idea would be like, guys, our software is really out of date and we got to switch to that new LMS. We got to switch to that new, CRM software. It's going to be good for the team. I know it's going to be painful, but we got to do it. What team member is going to be like, yeah, whoa. Yeah. You as a business owner can do vitamin things for your business. You can do things that are good for the business that have short-term pain, but long-term gain. Your team members aren't thinking that way. You're lucky if they're thinking 6 months to a year at your company. Yep. So you want to try to emphasize, what is the painkiller? Why is this going to help us immediately? That's going to help them get over that short-term pain. So the difference between a vitamin and painkiller, vitamin is like, this is good for us. It's going to be really, we should do it. A painkiller is like, you know how you're having lower close rates because we lose contact cards? That problem will be gone next week. Literally gone. Now, we're going to have to set up some stuff. We're going to have to do the back end, but that will no longer be a complaint for you. It fixes the problem in day one. Now, that's one feature of the new CRM or the new software. But if you know that is a complaint of your sales team, that's how you're going to your sales team. That pain point you've been coming to me about for the last 6 months, it's going to fix it. Done. I prioritize that for you. Now, there's 15 other things that has to be done, but boy, oh boy, don't you want to get rid of that headache. And maybe for the HR team, it's like, hey, you know how it's been a nightmare tracking all the contact with people? No more. This totally fixes all of it. It puts it all in one place.
Brilliant.
So it's painkillers, not vitamins, even internally.
Yeah. We talk a lot about issues with communicating with our spouses because we're actually buddies in real life.
Yes.
And we also have a friend who's like sort of a relationship guru person. So I know you and I typically don't love to talk about our relationships publicly. So let's do it like externally. But like these days, man, I mean, we have people getting married later than ever. We have people having less sex. We have people being in less committed relationships.
Divorce is up.
Divorce is up. I think it's hard for young people finding somebody. What advice do you have, or what research do you have to show how to better connect with a member of the opposite sex if you're single?
Okay, so I want to actually answer this in two ways. I want to answer it for single people, and I want to answer it for coupled people.
Let's do it.
Okay, so this is amazing research. It changed my relationship with my husband and actually some close family members, which is Dr. Dan McAdams found that we connect through 3 different levels. When we're with someone, we're trying to pass through first, level 1, general traits. What do you do? Where you're from? What's your value system? Very, very basics. Level 2, personal concerns. What worries you? What are your motivations? What are your goals? Level 3, the hardest one, we're not there with most people in our life, self-narrative. What is the story you tell yourself about yourself? And so in single people, I think what's really important is understanding those 3 levels and knowing how to break through from level 1 to level 3. You can do this with 15 questions. So we've actually been diving into this research, and I found 5 questions for each level that you can actually use to break through. So for example, in the very first level, I want you to ask about, so this is not just what do you do, it's what excites you, what's been the highlight of your week, what are you learning right now? Those are questions that are like, not just like, where do you vacation? Like, not just like, oh, what do you do for fun, right? Like, they're questions that are actually beginning to untangle some deeper connective tissue. Then you want to try to graduate. Like you want to actually move to level 2 questions. Level 2 questions are, you know you're on level 2 with someone if you know, what do they worry about when they fall asleep at night? What do they think about when they get up in the morning? If you don't know the answer to those questions, you're not close enough, right? Like I think I probably know what keeps you up at night and what gets you up in the morning. I think you know that about me too, right? So you should also be doing this with your friends, but literally asking like, what worries you? What's the thing that keeps you up at night? What motivates you? What are you driving towards? What's your biggest goal this year? So those are value-based personality questions. And the last level, and this is the hardest one, is what's the story they tell themselves about themselves? I think what's really important is you want to know what their narrative is. And in our research, and this is new research, I'm finding there are basically 3 different self-narratives, and you want to know what you're getting into. The first one is my favorite. It's a hero self-narrative. You want a hero if you can in a relationship. A hero self-narrative is something like this. I have challenges and problems, but with hard work and grit and determination, I overcome them. And that is their narrative for everything. Their childhood, their work, their workout routine, like you have choose your heart, like that is a perfect example of a hero self-narrative. You'll find something, conquer it, and then be done with it, have success with it. You like that because in a relationship, that sets you up for success. They know it's not easy. Right? Like they know it might take a little bit of hard work, but they want the success. The second self-narrative I call a healer self-narrative. This is typically someone who their entire life is giving. Like they're always trying to fix and heal. They're typically in social work, teaching, the medical profession. They are givers. And that can be a problem. It's not a bad thing, but it can be a problem because they typically are people pleasers. They typically don't stand up for themselves. They're also the friend who says yes to everything and then cancels last minute. Right, like because they cannot say no in the moment because they really want to, but they are so overextended. But you should know that going into a relationship that you might have to stand up for them and they will probably overextend themselves, right? Or you might be in a relationship where you want a healer. The last one is the one you want to watch out for, which is a victim self-narrative. A victim self-narrative starts like the hero. Challenges, mistakes, problems, but they couldn't overcome. That no matter how hard they worked, they weren't able to change anything. They typically are the ones who feel they have very bad luck. And over again, these are the friends where it's like, nothing's ever fixed. You give them advice. They can't figure it out. Woe is me. Everyone's against me. You want to watch out for that because they will never be able to get out of that if that's how they see their whole life. That's literally their narrative about how their life goes. So as a single person, if you can try